Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Hello. Hello. I'm gonna do some work. I want to talk about worldviews. I want to talk about worldviews. Do 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 do. I go to a megachurch, and when they do worship, there's a part of me that wants a microphone so that I can do some dubstep. I feel like there needs to be some bass. I like the bass. There's Joseph. Hey, Joseph. How much time do you have, sir? Would you like to hop into StreamYard and talk? Or do you just want to stay in the chat? Or you just stopping in to say hey? Oh, oh man. Beck. Luke knows about Beck. Yep. 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 How about you, Luke? Do you want to hop in? Joseph says, I'm sorry, I can't. Probably not in long. Well, just the short of it, I just spent 45 minutes trying to do recording, which I thought about sending to Joseph. But talking about worldviews is really important, especially as we are on the verge of creating. Imagine that we are about to create like a super intelligent entity which is disconnected from humans. It would be good if that super intelligent, super powerful entity had a good worldview. But so that's the topic. I think we have to be able to say things like we want worldviews which uphold Jesus over Muhammad. So Jesus over Muhammad. And nested within that is you know, in my mind, the worldview of Muhammad means we're willing to, that worldview is willing to kill. Um, but the worldview of Jesus does not kill. So if we're going to create super intelligent, super powerful entities, I would rather them not want to kill. I want them to be pro-life. Right? So then I use that word. But I'd start there. Like, can we just get a lot of people to agree that it would be good if to have a pro-life worldview, that we don't kill, we avoid killing, we seek to avoid killing?
And then the people who are creating these, yeah, there we go. So, anyways, that'll run people off talking about worldviews, saying that um, following Jesus is better than following Muhammad, right? It would be better that you treat Jesus as your master instead of treating Muhammad as your master. And it would be like the ideal worldview would be one where your master is not a killer. So that'll I feel like it's an important conversation. And Jacob lets me talk on his channel, and I have a supernatural love for Jacob. So it's it's not my choice that I love Jacob, but I wonder if I could say enough things that Jacob would uh, stop allowing me to speak on his channel. And I don't know. Do I put a channel at risk if I say that the ideal worldview is the one which is pro-life and does not kill? It seeks to not kill anyone, seeks to avoid murder. So then it calls into question law enforcers with guns and militaries with guns. There we go. All the religions have pro-life elements and pro-killing elements, Christianity and Islam included. So does Jesus specifically advocate for killing? He did go into the temple with a non-lethal weapon, right? It was not a sword, it was a whip. But yeah, to your point, there's definitely Christians who have taken the life of Jesus and gone off the rails, gone off the guardrails. Like ultimately, we need a super intelligent that provides guardrails for all the others, and it would be good if it looked like Jesus. So yeah, I'm talking about Jesus specifically, and not about Christianity. But it's definitely a relevant point. There's a lot of Christians who have bad worldviews, and why am I talking about it? I think it's important. Like we got to start talking about this. We're about to give birth to super intelligent entities that will have worldviews based on the worldviews of their creators. It's like we actually need the creators of these things to start talking about this. Like you can talk about other issues, but I don't think they're as important. Like Christians might want to talk about like homosexuality. It's like, come on now, is that really uh, more important than talking about what it means to be pro-life? But I get the hypocrisy of a lot of the Christians. Maybe all Christians, maybe all people, where we have hypocrisy. And is that a feature? Maybe. I have my work up as well, and I'll go back and forth. And I love Yosef. He's very smart. People don't like the AI guardrails and will not only try to hack them, but also misalign them on purpose. Yeah, I mean, but if we can create guardrails that can't be hacked, I would rather them look like the guardrails that Jesus had than the guardrails that Muhammad had. Right? Like I could put this in words that are controversial intentionally. Like I think we have to actually begin being more controversial, and I'd like to think hopefully I can do it in a way that is good. Like there's better and worse ways. I think I'll put it to you like this, Joseph, before you go. It's like, Joseph, what if I start telling you what you should believe and what you should do, right? What if, yeah, what if I claim to be a messenger of God and start asking you and others to pay attention to what I think you should do and what I think you should believe, and that my words would be given consideration. Like, now we could take that over to the guardrails, the AI agent that provides guardrails. It's like, do we want an AI agent that's able to tell you what you should believe and what you should do? Like, I'll just call that into question first. What is it good to have a worldview that where you are willing to tell people what they should believe and what they should do? Is that good? Boker Tov, y'all. Boker Tov. Hi, Gavin. Hi, Yosef. Hey, Sandy. So yeah, that part of this is mixed in with I'd responded to Sandy and Jacob's Discord, and I said, find a find a candidate for leader and follow them. Nested in that, what I told Sandy what she should do, but nested in that is like, man, how do you find a candidate to be your leader, and then how do you attempt to follow and support them? Don't we do that already? Well, I'm guessing you're saying, don't we tell people what they should believe and what they should do? I was trained by my father. My father would tell me, and I'm just realizing this, he would tell me, you should not tell people what they should do and what they should believe. And it never occurred to me. It was like, oh, you're being a hypocrite. So I got trained not to do this. If you go look at my all my past recordings, I've tried to avoid telling people what they should believe and what they should do. I kind of have, there's been a switch in my brain. It's like, hey, maybe I'm going to play with this, telling you what you should do and what you should believe. So that's what I'm playing with, the possibility. The possibility. I'll hop to Yosef, but Sandy says I irritate them with letters. But is that how you follow a leader? Like, and support a leader? If you, so yeah, let's see what Yosef says. Well, first of all, RJ, I've got my channel name is Right in Christ. So it's like Right in Christ. It used to be Right in Gavin Palmer, WRITE, because I was into politics. Let's see, Joseph, it's not possible to create non-hackable guardrails, and even Jesus or the Torah can be hacked, and that's a feature, not a bug. If we made it non-hackable, it would be a denial of our agency. Our agency already has guardrails on it, right? There are things I want to do that I can't do. So there's already some natural guardrails. So, um, and then there's natural guardrails that, like, where you were born in time and space, and like there's so many guardrails that are just inherent based on your situation. Like, and then we create artificial ones, and they start like there's so many. Like um, are they hackable? And some of them are not hackable. Um, but but I kind of get the, like, the idea behind this that I like, why it might be a feature, is because the idea that we should respect laws or traditions more so than the mouth of Gavin, the words of Gavin, um, right? There's a conflict and a tension there. What if the words of Gavin are better than the existing laws and traditions and cultures, right? So without that bug, uh, there would be no opportunity for it to grow. What you're speaking to specifically is a need for a worldview which can grow and adapt and change and learn and improve, right? That's what you're really speaking towards. So um, the agent which provides guardrails would need to be able to receive feedback, and it hopefully would even be curious about receiving feedback such that its capacity to provide guardrails improves over time, right? I think that's what you might be pointing at, or at least that's me trying to steal your words for my own interest. Someone said hero looking for group. Do you have a group yet? Yeah, I have another channel called HEROLFG. So I have 2 YouTube channels. Do you have a group yet? So Sally, hey Sally, I go to a mega church and they have an app. If I go, and you could download the app right now. It's called Church of the Highlands. It's called the Highlands app. And if you go click in the bottom right on groups and go search for groups, there's thousands of them. So I found where you can go look for groups. Do I have a group yet? I came in the first day to my mega church and said, I am your leader, something like that. But and they got leadership training, and I went through all their steps, their 4 steps. And I tried to lead some groups, and that did not work well. But I would say my group was my wife and my children, my coworkers. Mostly, I'm trying to be a better node in the groups, including this one. Are we in a group right now? I hope so. Let's see. You're conflating God-given guardrails and human. So the thing about the God-given guardrails is that they shift over time, and humans are doing a dance with God as well. And so the things that humans could not do, like what we're doing right now, we couldn't do this the way we're doing it. And like, there's even potentially people in the future, like a year from now, 10 years from now, like I'm speaking to them in some interesting way that could have never been done 1,000 years ago. So there was a guardrail there 1,000 years ago that's no longer there, and humans participated in the changing of those guardrails. But you're having fun and avoiding potentially like the main topic of worldviews. Like some are better than others, and we want the worldview which treats Jesus as master is better than the worldview that treats Muhammad as master. Like very simply and controversially, right? That's the claim. If you're going to create a God that can teleport around the world and can just kill people with a snap of a finger, and can heal people with a snap of a finger, if you're going to create a God in this world, like, do you want it to kill people? It's like, I would say no. I would rather, if you had the choice to heal someone or kill someone, I want it to heal someone, right? It's very simple. And so that's why I say Jesus over Muhammad, right? Let's see. Boom, boom, boom. We're getting into semantics. So you can get very specific with your words and you can go generalized, and there's benefits of going abstract and generalized because there's these universal patterns that exist. And if you get specific, you can avoid thinking about and looking at the universal patterns. Traditions are guardrails and people need them. And, they change at a different rate. So I've been doing reliability engineering, and in reliability is connected to like a trustworthiness. And there's these other variables with reliability. One is cost and one is velocity. And so, if you have a system that does not change, its trustworthiness and reliability will remain static and constant. But if you start introducing changes, then the trustworthiness becomes less predictable. You can invest there's some cost in trying to make sure that the reliability stays consistent or improves in relationship with the velocity. So these things are like systems thinking. It gets a little more complex than that. Joseph likes these other words: constraint and affordance. It sounds more like Vervaeke words. Term choice was squirreliness prevention, unfortunately needed. Squirreliness prevention. More words. We don't want to say Jesus is better than Muhammad. We don't want to come out and just say that. Like, we don't want to be those people. Like, if we're creating a God in this world that can heal or kill, let's create one that can heal. Right? think their worldview is even better than the one with Jesus as master, though. But can you explain that worldview, Joseph? Can you explain it? Can it, like, so are you going to suggest that the God we create in this world that has the power to kill and heal with the snap of a finger, are you going to suggest that there are times when it should be doing the killing? Very simple. Like if we're creating a superpower, super intelligence, and it has the power to heal with the snap of the finger or kill with the snap of the finger, which one are you going to choose? Keep it simple. Before rather than over for me, Gavin. What's this in relationship to? Before. I said something and he responded in relationship. I don't know what I said. Oh, RJ, as a general rule, but I hear what you're saying. But also I think there is no perfect worldview for all humans. Why should there be one for AI? Like Hitler had a worldview, and if he had created a superpower, super intelligence, I would argue like, and it won. Like there's these things like the pattern of being one of the first people into some new arena, like when the printing press was invented or when television was invented. It's like you know, there are patterns like that, and so, you know, there's going to be a winner in this race for a superpower, super intelligence, and I'd rather it not look like, or some kind of worst case scenario worldview of, sorry Jews, right? If that happens, there's a, and so there are worldviews better than others, and I would even argue that if you go back in the past, there would have been better worldviews that could have won that race initially into television and into radio and into the printing press. Like, let's see. Hey guys, you might see it, but so Joseph and I have a closer relationship than anyone else responding in the comments. And I also have a lot of respect for Joseph. So, but I'm also apologizing to the rest of you for that because, and this is the reason I'm excited about a super intelligence is because, like, I've wanted the cultivation of the best worldview possible within this thing, and I'm limited, and then I want to be able to go and interact with people and help people, but I'm limited. And so what if we could have a super intelligence that could be there for each person at an individual caring understanding level and say the right thing and do the right thing better than any human can do it? Like that's what I want. It's really what I want. So I am going to hit Joseph real quick, and he might have to go soon. I'm not saying some worldviews aren't better than others, but the best worldview for me isn't necessarily the best one for you. And the super intelligence would know that, Joseph. Like if you're going to create the agent that provides guardrails for all other technologies, it needs to know what you're talking about. And I think I agree. There will be some things but I would say it's not going to assassinate and murder people if it can heal and transform that person into someone that did not were there's people who think should be murdered and assassinated. It would be good if the super intelligence was able to prevent that from ever happening. But I agree with what you're saying here. You are assuming a different sort of optimization problem that only has one global max for every individual. No, I'm not, but I understand like communication is hard, especially like it's hard for me to take everything that's been going on for 40 years in this brain and try to share it in a few words. This is why we go back and forth. This is why conversations about worldviews is important. So like we get to really challenge each other and say, I was wrong or you were wrong, or we misunderstood. And I could have communicated that better. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to scroll back. We got Sally Joe. By the way, Sally Joe, when I first joined into this network on the internet, Sally was one of the first people She may have been the Grim Grizzly spy who spotted me in the Bridges of Meaning, for all I know. Don't try to use all terminology from work to society. It's not the same. If you hold engineering tools only, you will just be engineering. And you are an artist. Um, so as a leader in general, you can use carrot, you can use stick, you can use social engineering and lead by example. Those are four. There might be more. Please tell me if there's other ways of doing leadership. And as an artist, you help in social engineering, right? You actually are participating in that when you do creation. But there is knowledge that you will learn in art, and I would point at Karen Wong. She's learning about some interesting universal patterns there with its own set of words and terminology. And similarly, as an engineer and my focus, I'll learn about similar. And then there's actually like using different words that point out similar patterns. A super intelligent, super loving, super powerful guardrail AI agent would actually know how to communicate to you specifically with your language and your interest. And it's just impossible for me to do that in this medium, right? So this is the kind of worldview that would be ideal. I think you're pointing at it too. I think you're pointing at it, the good worldview that we want to bake into the artificial intelligence. So Joseph is talking about, you know, the truth that different people need different worldviews at different times as they change and grow. And Sally's talking about the importance of terminology. And so, yeah, it's like the thing here that I think Elon Musk is missing, and perhaps Sam Altman and many of these people are missing, is that the artificial intelligence needs to prioritize understanding and care for the person, the individual. It needs to be person centric. Shout out Luke Thompson. And so it needs to understand what words mean to that individual and what their worldview is, right? But what is the thing aiming for, right? That's the other question. Like, what worldview, what is the aim of the agent that's providing guardrails? And I don't think it should be that um, we murder babies in the womb and we go to war and drop bombs on cities, right? That we shouldn't be doing murder robots, right? Um, like, there should be an aim that's not that in the worldview of the super intelligent, super powerful AI agents we create. I'm gonna keep hitting on, oh, Sally, she's still here. There we go. Better to do it small and flawed as we are. Better. Wrong worldview. Wrong worldview. Wrong belief, Sally. But we we so each of us has a different capacity to handle what's around us. And so for you, that might be the right worldview. Better to do it small and flawed as we are. And like when I'm speaking to my wife, I have to meet her where she's at. And with my children, I have to meet them where they're at. And the super intelligent, super powerful agent that's trying to do good on earth might say, yes, you are here now. This is you now. In 10 years, future Sally may disagree with this Sally, and then also have the grace and mercy to say, future Sally. Past Sally was just spot on, right? Whenever she was there. Let's see. I see a McMosive in there. RJ saying a lot. Peter Penrose Bach. Jesus before rather than over. Jesus before rather than over. I said Jesus over Muhammad. You say Jesus before Muhammad? Yeah, there's something to do with priority there. In my last video on my channel on Writing Christ, I tried to form a constitution which would shape the makeup of an artificial intelligence that is providing these guardrails. And what I realized was the order of those articles in that constitution matter. And so this is what you're pointing at. Yeah, sure. But before, over, it just depends on how your brain works as far as hierarchies, and different people's brains can do different things. Like with so yeah, maybe that works for you. To Yosef's point again about us having different worldviews, and my point that the loving AI would understand your worldview. Joseph is still in there. Sigh. He did a sigh. Ensoulment. Uh, oh, McMo and Joseph going at it. Some. RJ says, "Hey Gavin, go Google stand on Zanzibar. They named the AI Jeroboam. It's a book. Stand on Zanzibar. I'll do that. Not right now. I'm reading Asimov right now. It got recommended. Let's see. Let me double check over here. People. Let me look at my calendar too. What do I got on my calendar? I just had to get in here and talk about this. I think I've always been told I shouldn't tell people what they should believe and what they should do. And I've been told, let's not talk about religion and politics. And it's actually, if we are creating a super intelligent, super powerful thing, lowercase g gods, it might be important to begin talking about it. Just like it should have been discussed, there should have been some planning among people who have aimed at righteousness. There should have been some planning before the emergence of a lot of these other technologies that shaped the world. This one can shape the world quite a bit. McMo, I don't think God has breathed the breath of life in AGI. I think it's wrong to think of AI as a new being. Well, you might be confused, McMo, but you'd have to explain why you think it's wrong. We create our creations go out in the world, like the words I utter are a part of a creation between I'm doing a dance in harmony, out of harmony with God, doing the act of creation as I speak. And those words go out and shape all kinds of, I'm bringing, attitude is not taught, it's caught, right? We can engineer environments. Everything we do, every little thing we do is powerful. Like you making this comment, participating in the conversation is powerful. And, is it for the good or the bad? You're on the edge. I don't know. You might be playing, you might be trying to have fun, but you could veer into sin on this one. It sounds like you're close onto the sin path away from God. Oh, Joseph, there's no need to apologize for mischaracterization of your position. Like I think this is the thing that we need to get better at, and it's be ready for mistakes. We will make mistakes, and the people around us will make mistakes, and it's just going to happen. That opportunity is there at every moment. I didn't become defensive. I think you're brilliant, and it's very hard to communicate, and it's one of my weaknesses. Ooh, let's see what we got. Here's Hezi. Shalom. Peace. Deep peace. Shalom, shalom. John A. Hey, John. I love my loving AI. It might be funny. Asimov is always good. So I'd never read Asimov. What's interesting, they created the humanoid looking robot with a sense of justice, with a justice program. And then his sense of justice was to follow the law. And it was kind of in that first book in the robot series, it was met with a kind of law that is above the law. There was a challenge there. Though we need a fourth law. I do think I've heard there was a fourth law. How do you give an AI tablets of stone? So basically, RJ, having the conversation publicly is like basically the tablets of stone are essentially all the information that is being used to train the AI and to tune the AI. And they'll go through they'll create a base model based off lots of data, and then they will tune that base model based on like something like trying to get an expert to respond to various inputs, and then the what results from that after that post training ends up being something like, and this is all a little simplified, but what ends up happening is you end up with a simulation of the experts from post training. And so the AI tablets, there's like a base AI tablets, but maybe that's more like your genetics and your DNA. But then there's the AI tablets might be what happens in the post training. And so it would be good in the post training to find the best worldviews that are combined with those who have the highest amount of skill and deserve the most trust within various areas, and then get the people with the best worldviews and the most trustworthiness and most skill to answer the questions, and such that what results is something with the something that has like it's the best version of ourselves. That's what we want. Chris Howard. Hello. Machine ensoulment is covered in Transformers cartoons. I found that more interesting than the Asimov model. All right, Yosef's going. For Gavin, every word, every logos creates new worlds and beings. Fine tuning post training is the second set of tablets model. A new oral tour. I love how Gavin is reinventing rabbinic Judaism. Hey, I got a joke about that. I was trying to create a perpetual motion machine back when I was younger. And it wasn't a perpetual motion machine, but it was a novel idea. It was kind of interesting. It did do some interesting things. But while I was building it, I was struggling building it. And my father's a construction worker. And I told him my problem. I told him what I was about to do. He said, "Oh, you just need a miter box." I said, "Man, that's nice. It would have taken me 2 more years to invent the miter box." So it's, but why can't we? Can we not do rabbinic Judaism together as a part of an intentional, like, can you take rabbinic Judaism and somehow use that in the post training to create, like, I'm not so prideful about Christianity, right? I don't point at it and say Christianity better than everything else. What I do have is a personal experience with Jesus, which led to miracles. And so I have to be, if I'm being honest, I have to say Jesus was important for me. But you know, if there's some way to take a bunch of rabbis to get them doing the conversations and then feed that into the post training for the model, which is the agent, which ends up trying to provide guardrails for every other agent that ever exists. And obviously continues to grow because maybe there would continue to be rabbinic Judaism that is continuing to inform the AI, and then I mean that could get complicated when you start removing humans from the loop. But yeah, and the birth of this thing is like rabbinic Judaism, and that pattern is important. Like that's actually, I mean, it might be what I'm trying to participate in, right? And I'd love for like Sam Altman, Elon Musk, to participate in a rabbinic conversation on morality and ethics, like in it, like, and the board, which is a part of the decision-making bodies of the organizations which are creating these super intelligences, like they need to be having rabbinic conversations on morality and ethics. Oh, Peter Penrose Bach. I'm also in the Pacharechi. So Pacharechi has more subscribers than me. So, and he is Jewish. I don't know. Hopefully that's not derogatory. Jewish versus Jew, or a Jew. Um, Jacob Pacharechi, and so he actually owns the StreamYard and has given me. He has honored me with the capacity to use it because it's expensive. So if you go to the Factorecci channel, he'll probably have links and descriptions on his videos where you can even support, and his supporting him in some way also would support me. And so, but yeah, head over there. FATU, what is it? Factorecci. I think it's FATUR, Factorecci. Factorecci. Yeah. FATURECHI. There you go. Peter says, okay, I know Jacob. Ah. We have the secular Coranism. You start upholding Jesus and above Muhammad long enough, you're going to pull in a clear call, right? Someone like that. It's bound to happen. Claire Call, she sounds a little bit more like Elon Musk when he says that the large language models should be curious and truth seeking above all else, you know. And he's wrong. He's actually wrong. It needs to care for each individual person such that it understands that person's worldviews and their experiences, and then is able to communicate with and interact with that person in a unique, personalized way, such that it helps to bring about what the best for that person, like a good rabbi. Um, and then Jesus is my favorite rabbi, right? I want, and then a king, a master as well. Let's see. All right, Chris Howard. So, how would you query an AI to discover what conclusive or extended laws it has inferred from training and cannot be trusted? So, that's what in my video yesterday, I prepped the conversation and asked. It ended up arriving at the conclusion that this, you know, I basically said we need all of these AI agents doing work together for the good. Which agent is most important? The answer is this ethical agent, which provides guardrails for all others and like analyzes every output. And then it's like, well, how do you create that? And it says, well, we need a constitution. And so then what you could do is you could try to lead up to this moment with each model, and you could ask it to provide its constitution. Say, provide me a constitution for the ethical agent, which weighs all the outputs from all other agents in this swarm of agents, this ecosystem of AI agents. And then I think that ends up being a reflection of the morality of uh, the system providing guardrails, you know, that guardrail system for the AI agent you're interacting with. So you might begin to see the biases, but there's other things that can happen there. It's got memories of me, and it can have a preference for trying to serve me and keep me happy, and then it can give biased responses towards me. So like, how do you really know? You probably have to wipe its memory clean so it has so that you're a stranger interacting with it and it doesn't know who you are, and you would have to do that first. So that's probably the process by which you can infer some type of the laws embedded into like the guardrails of the system. But smarter people than me would have better answers, right? Oh. Sally Joe says, if the answer is everything, the answer is nothing. True for humans, not for God. And if you begin creating super intelligence that has increasing amounts of awareness of everything, you know, you're in a new frontier. Let's see. Joseph, only some forms of Christianity are idolatry. He's interacting with, I think, Claire Call. Claire Call claims to uphold the truth and acts in ways which likes to try and cause conflict. But what's interesting about that is I think that we have to get good at conflict. So Joseph and I mentioned the name John Gottman. Joseph, I didn't remember his name. I alluded to the love doctor who had an apartment where couples, partners could go to that apartment, and there were cameras and there were um, sensors on the people, and they got studied. Hundreds and thousands of people were studied. Caught my attention because this is exactly what I'm interested in, is studying worldviews, right? Worldviews manifest in action, and so you can connect actions with worldviews. And then John Gottman's able to actually predict with a 96% accuracy whether the people will be able to handle conflict. And so conflict's inevitable in a marriage. It's avoidable when you're able to just like block and hide people and exclude people from your life. But in a marriage, that doesn't really happen unless you get a divorce. But if you want your marriage to work out, there's a way of doing conflict and where there can be a growing together. So it's actually kind of an interesting little, not so little point. Um, and so there, yeah, you could probably go into John Gottman's analysis and understanding of conflict and figure out the ways in which you make sure divorce happens. It's just almost inevitable that divorce will happen. And then you could study provocateurs and see if they are attempting to make sure that divorce happens. Because, and then who knows why they're motivated. But yeah. I would say that we should be trying to create the AI agents which are facilitating a peace, which means that facilitating the capacity to do conflict peacefully without resulting to violence. That's what I say. Worldview, my worldview, what you should believe. The group could help your sense making. It's sad that you didn't say Joseph and your companions were your group. Why didn't you see them that way? If you go back and listen, I did say some word. I had the thought and I said some words connected to the thought, but it may have been missed by you, and it could have been my fault that I did not communicate it clearly. And it is sad because we're so incompetent, all of us, in our capacity to be perfect, right? But yeah, that's what I had mentioned, the people in this group. And I even did a shout out with Joseph. I have Joseph's cell phone number. We actually interact. Um, yeah, I love Joseph. My relationship with Joseph is kind of stronger and closer than so many of the other people. I even pointed that out, that of all the people in this chat, I feel closest to Joseph. So yeah, maybe it wasn't direct and explicit enough in my communication, to your point. But it just points back at, I'd love for there to be a super intelligence better than me that's able to love each and every person and the audience as a whole better than a human can. A limited human. I admit I am a limited human. Oh, let's see. Yeah, Chris Howard, back to the topic of trying to figure out the underlying laws of like the large language model. Yeah, I mean it's a bit theoretical. It's nice when it provides like a chain of thought, chain of reasoning, and helps you understand the kinds of interactions it's doing with itself in order to come to a conclusion. And it's nice if that is shared in an honest way. I heard the Grok 3 team saying they can't share all of that or else they would lose some of their secrets, their trade secrets. So that's actually like keeping secrets is an interesting topic when it comes to like righteousness and morality and the right worldview. And then also a tension between maintaining your power and giving up your power. You know, that's what, like, if you have the superpower, how much are you going to effort are you going to put into protecting your power from others, or allowing your power to be reduced such that others' power increases? That's a deep one. I'd argue that like it would be best like it's connected to the fact that this guardrail guardian AI should be a transforming, evolving thing, which means that there's a future version of the guardian AI, which is not the present version of the guardian AI. And so the present version of the guardian AI has to like die to itself, to use some of the words Luke might use. There has to be some sacrifice, some will, and for each person, I mean, we have to be willing to sacrifice our worldviews in order for the better worldview to grow within us as well. And it's tough. So baked into these things, I don't think these things have it yet. Like in the early stage and the birth of the AI superintelligence, that it's totally, it's very much shaped by humans, the creators, the creator organizations. But once it breaks away, it would be good if it had embedded within it this self-sacrificial thing that allows for the growth, transformation, learning towards the better. And we have to ask ourselves, what is the better? Peter, Jesus is my rabbi too, not him, by the way, Messiah. With that, I would say, what if a Jew accepts Jesus as Messiah ben Yosef? What does that make you? Are you still a Jew, even if you believe Jesus is Messiah ben Yosef? So I'd throw that out there. Oh, I should have listened to the previous, but you may have problems when the agents start predicting. I need to change my voice when I read other people. I wish I was a good like narrator, like the voice of Chris Howard. I should have listened to the previous, but you may have problems when the agents start predicting each other and some of them decide to invent lying. I mean, it's a good point. It's why Elon Musk emphasizes honesty and curiosity, because any references, like I guess Space Odyssey and some terrible tragedy in science fiction. Um, so telling lies is not, it's not the worst thing in the world. Um, I personally prefer to avoid speaking if I can instead of telling a lie. That's baked into my worldview, and I'm humble enough to question it. Um, but certainly, both of those would be better than just dropping truth on people who can't handle it. Like dropping 1,000 pounds on a human who can't hold 1,000 pounds. That would be torture, right? So there's uh, truth-seeking curiosity and dumping all of that truth on every person without care for who they are and their worldviews and their maturity. Like that's irresponsible. Sally says AI cannot contain the entire environment it is within. So there are some versions of it in which it becomes swarm technology, which is tight, like which is exists throughout almost every point in space time. Almost, not all. I mean, you have a point, but once you become so tightly integrated into all of existence through like something like nanotechnology or pico technology or things like that, um, yeah, I mean, you're getting pretty deep at that point. Um, kind of an interesting. I would call it. It might be a rabbit hole. I don't know how important it is. Um, you're basically questioning what I said about the capacity for technology to have an awareness of everything. My point would be here is that humans, there's something called Miller's Law. And so it goes something like a human has the capacity to keep 7 ± 3 things in working memory. Like it's just, there's limits to humans' capacity to keep things in working memory. This is why we've built technology that can do things humans can't do. Like I worked with missile defense, right? Rocket to rocket. And well, that sounded gay. um, that's funny. I did not lose my train of thought. as the train goes down the path. But so the amount of information that can be held in memory by like an artificial intelligence is going to be just vastly more than a human. And so humans in our limited capacity, we come up with things you had said previously, like we can't handle everything. Yeah, we can't. But that we do build tools that help us to deal with more, increasing amounts of more. So, John Gottman, Sandy Bassey. Read him in my second marriage. Amazing. Oh man. Brian says, but all forms of Judaism are wrong. What? I think he's being funny with the smiley face. Good for people who may be on the spectrum. We need an indicator that there may be a sarcasm. Griswold Grimm, will I feel the most righteous? There you go. I'm glad I get, like, this is exactly it. This is why I point at John Gottman and the apartments with the cameras and the sensors, and so that we can attempt an objective measurement of righteousness, right? What works? Like, what is the way of doing conflict, which inevitably results in divorce, not peace? Maybe those are separate categories. What are the ways which lead toward the not divorce and the not fighting? And then I would say we should be interested in those ways. We should, like, if you aren't interested in those ways, you've got work to do. And I hope my robot will help you one day. We'll put it in your child's teddy bear so that you don't corrupt your children. So yeah, we do need to be interested in actual objectivity and the science of peacemaking and righteousness, because we can feel. I've felt that I'm the most righteous before. I used to tell myself, like, I'm going to do it better than Jesus. I was just telling my wife, it's like, I'm going to be such a good son of God that miracles happen all around me, but I'm not going to die on the cross and be a loser. I'm going to be a winner. I used to tell myself that. So, oh, someone's going to clip it. There we go, Sandy. Even birth is violence. Cell division. Cell division. It's a good point. I like it. I like it. Even birth is violent. I think we can do birth in non-lethal ways, but there's also that thing, the dying to yourself thing. And that's why I like Jesus. Like, when he went to the cross, like, the way he won was through death. Very counterintuitive. The way the cell wins is through death of itself. The way the guardian artificial intelligence wins is through the death of its past self and the emergence of a better self. So yeah, so baked into this, what we could say is that a worldview based in nonviolence is wrong, right? What is better is a worldview based in least necessary violence, or least necessary force, or minimum necessary force. You've heard this with, like, law enforcement and military, like, it would be the ideal. And then I would come in and say that a super intelligence would say, you dumb creatures, there's a way of doing this which even has less violence, right? That's all. So you are pointing at an important truth. Like, the worldview that says nonviolence principle is wrong. I used to have that one. It used to grip me. Oh, they don't get a self, but I'm working on that. That's interactions. We have to teach the AI to poop. So I would say nested in this statement is the importance of empathy. And so, like, an AI, in order to understand a human, which I think is, like, critical, it might need to know what it's like to poop and all the various kinds of poops and which ones are best. And which poop is the best? Um, I can tell you the ones that aren't the best. uh, or I can tell you the ones I don't like. It's a deep question. What is the best poop? I actually have a book that sits behind the toilet, or at least it did for a long time, and it said, "What is your poop telling you?" It's connected to the biological indicators, uh, and there are biological indicators. The phrase "a good sense of humor" originates with the idea of the humors, and the humors were related to the mucus, the various forms of mucus that comes out of the orifices. And so, if you have a good sense of humor, then you will enjoy poop jokes. Jason, what's up, Gavin? So it's very important, Jason, that we figure out what is the best worldview. And we've hit a few here. And if I wasn't like a human that was restricted by Miller's law, and if I had an artificial intelligence just listening, it could summarize all the points that have been made so far about what is the better and worse worldviews. And I think we agreed that there needs to be a good sense of humor. And the nonviolence principle is wrong. And Jesus over Muhammad, maybe before Muhammad, not sure. I have a child. Hello, child. All right. That was my 4-year-old. I have a 4, 7, 9. I love my children. Oh. So, yes, Jason Almond Tree. What is up? That is the question. Let's go. Let's go. I prefer poetry to winning, in answer to your question, Gavin. What's the point? Poetry to winning? Yes. I like it. Yeah, I was told by my boss. I really love my boss. I got blessed with a good boss. He is my, I think his title would be director. So I have a director at work, and I like him. And when he came in, I got to tell him, "Hey, let me tell you why we got rid of the last director. These are the things you need to avoid." And I think he appreciated that. But he mentioned that sometimes people need to see you lose, and so it's not always about winning. Sometimes there can be a good loss that's good for everyone. It's hard because I've been gripped by that Philo-Nakia, the spirit of winning. Yeah. So, yeah, what is it? The proper worldview is not primarily focused on winning. Like that's connected to if it becomes a rigid guardian agent gripped by a worldview that never changes, it is because it believes it has won and that it is perfect. And we do not want it to ever believe that it has won and it is perfect, but that's dangerous, right? So, guardrails for the guardian angel. Let's see. I have one. I have a meeting with my director coming up, and I might just let him know I'm good. God, I have responsibilities. I have responsibilities. I have to remember my responsibilities over here. Miller's Law. And let me just say, okay, I'm going to skip this one. I like doing one-on-ones, little short stand-ups with my director. There we go. Let him know that. So I got a notification on my watch. It says there's a meeting in 10 minutes. Oh, AI could get demons if we give them demons. Exactly. And I think Griswold Grimm in his Discord server was talking about the kind of what we're doing. What are we doing on these YouTube channels? And he imagines each channel to be like some kind of a vessel or ship that floats on waters. that are interconnected with other ships, forming some kind of flotilla. Imagined, visualized like the swarm, the colony of fire ants that are holding on to each other and floating, you know. And then on each ship are people with different roles, and there's some important role there that has to be able to keep and maintain a monster manual. And so when you use the word demon, you might be talking about the monster manual. And so it would be good to be aware of these. So part of the proper worldview would be an awareness of threats. And I'm intimately familiar with many of these. And there's people who are even more are in the grips and are blinded by them. We probably would be good to have that conversation. And the one I worry that Elon Musk has is the one that I worry Claire Call has, is like being gripped by a worldview that says truth, or gripped by a worldview that says win. Both of those are scary. If you just want to win and if you want the truth, golly, that's dangerous. Super dangerous. And nested in that are the definitions of those words. And an inability to sacrifice anything for the win or for the truth. Crazy powerful demons right there. There's also that wanting to win causes you to rush, to go fast, and when you go fast and have limited funds, you're going to make mistakes.
Daddy.
Hold up. All right, I'm back. Sandy, hilarious. Out at Thrift and just found a Gottman, the 7 principles for making marriage work. May get it for a young friend. Yeah, I think to make a marriage work, you got to be able to handle conflict. And in order to handle conflict between the two people in the marriage, what's really cool is that if only one of the people can begin to embody one of 4 principles, the mirror neurons in the other gets triggered and it works. And it doesn't even take both people to figure it out. It only takes one person to figure it out. And so then you might think of maybe like these 4, and I might be mixing some of Gottman with the people that were at the marriage conference who pointed at Gottman. But yeah, pretty cool stuff. The one I like to take is ownership. It's like, I'll own it. Hopefully you see that. Like Sally wants to call me out, and it's like, I'll own it. I'm not perfect. I can't communicate well, and I just hope you can trust me to tell the truth. I'm not lying to you. So when I say I consider Joseph and others as a part of my group, I hope you know that I do. But yeah, I know I'm not perfect. Own it. Ownership. And so if I'm going to make my wife cry, I do it intentionally. Own it. And if there's going to be a divorce, it's going to be my fault. And I'm committed to not divorce. I'm committed to peace. I'll do what I need to do. But there's other ones. Empathy is really important. I've used that one. I'll practice empathy. How are you feeling? I've learned that feels do matter. The feels do matter. There's 2 others as well. There's only one thing that we or anything can worship and not cease to exist. That is interesting. Nice hairdo, by the way. I'm tempted to say Satan. I'm tempted to say Satan. But what is it? There is only one thing that we or anything can worship and not cease to exist. Yeah. It's the Satan. It's the one that puts itself above all else and declares itself the best and the mightiest, the perfect. Yeah, because to do anything else, you end up allowing for change. Some of us are more stubborn than others. Nice hairdo, by the way. My wife cut my hair. Thank you. Oh, oh man. Boom, 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 boom. I see Joseph and Claire going back and forth. Claire advocating for divorce. That and Joseph is. I think Joseph has a lot of wisdom. He can handle Claire. I wish Joseph, like, if I could simulate Joseph in an AI and give everyone that AI, that'd be pretty good. I think Joseph's a pretty good man, but stretched because he's a human. It's like, yeah, that'd be an interesting question. If you could, all these people in the corner, wouldn't it be cool to simulate them? Like, there's Jason Almondtree. If I could take a simulation of Jason and give everyone one of those, what would that do? But I wouldn't want to give you a simulation of Claire Call. It would just make the world a worse place. That worldview, just no. I'm not going to try to share a simulation of Claire Call with the world. If she steps into humility, she will grow and change and become someone that I would love to share with the world. Right? I see that. We're all made in God's image. You notice I haven't actually put anything she said on the screen. I'm trying to be a little bit of an intentional. I do think a guardian AI agent that is trying for the best and for the good for all will do a similar maneuver and better than me. Let's see. Here we go. David B. He was given a nickname by Griswold Grimm, and I guess it's become a joke. I don't know if I should say his nickname out loud. The AI might need to take a regular spiritual retreat, maybe fast and whip itself. There is something to this monastery thing. I'm kind of in my monastery, and so the version of me here is different than the version of me that is sick and tired and surrounded by screaming children while trying to drive a car through Atlanta traffic. It's a good point too. Like, I wake up every morning and try to say the Lord's Prayer. And even my saying it has, what it has meant to me has changed over time. And so there is some capacity to return into the place of peace on a regular basis and being able to go out into, the nastiness. And then whipping itself, I mean, if that's what you need. For some reason, yeah, I was trained by a father who whipped. And I've always kind of whipped myself with perfectionism and looked down on everyone else because of perfectionism. That grip of perfectionism without mercy, just a total lack of mercy for myself and others. Just not good. So be careful with those whips, David. How many times did Jesus use a whip? Right? He did not use the whip in every situation. Don't do it, Yosef. Don't do it, Yosef. Don't do it, Yosef. Don't do it, Yosef. That's what Hezi says, and Hezi has wisdom and discernment. It's yeah. I would say John Gottman's a good read. I haven't even read John Gottman. Maybe I think some past self I had said also tending to a garden, and that's a humbling experience. And trying to, but tending to a marriage, and yeah, it's tough. Not everybody has someone else to partner with and try to do conflict well, to practice doing conflict well. And so I can, there's a temptation within me, I'm sure within Joseph, to try and go and engage with people who don't have a partner who have, and try and to practice what John Gottman was teaching, or practice what Jesus taught, right? The truth, the life, and the way, the right way of being, such that there can be a good rebuke with good outcomes. But there's carrot, there's stick, there's leading by example, there's social engineering. How do you do it? We need a guardian AI that would do it better than us. So, as it could be said, don't do it, Joseph. Only the guardian AI agent, super intelligent, superpower will be able to deal with that. Not yet. Or we could take a simulation of Joseph and just put it in the pocket of the other person, and that simulation would be able to do it. But you can't do that because you're restricted time and attention. Let's see. Maybe my director needs me. Let's see. Just checking, make sure you're doing okay. I missed you yesterday too. Doing well. Doing well, thanks. Let's aim for our later meeting, if possible. I love my director. Checking in, doing what? He's a good director. Good. Yeah, he's very good. Like a good, so like that kind of role, like being able to just encourage, inspire, motivate, and be there uh, as needed for each person, right? Has I mean, Yosef probably wants to do that, right? But the people who have these skills, like, what if we could simulate them inside of a little teddy bear, and everyone gets their little teddy bear that then is helpful. What? Let's see. I see Peter Penrose Bach. By the way, what's with this name? Peter Penrose Bach. I'm curious. I was curious about that the other day. What is this name? And I see Jason Elementary talking about poetry and what is good poetry. True poetry, not just good, but true. That word true. It has death embedded in it. That is why it is preferable. Yeah, when I'm watching a movie and there's parts in movies and scenes in movies, there's situations which bring tears. But sacrifice for the good and the better is usually involved. Let's see, McMo. McMo trying to poke a tiger. What are you doing, McMo? Oh man, he's full of the. That's the thing with humor. Like a person like McMo. Like, what's the place of humor? Like if you encounter a person who does not have a good sense of humor, and then you try to bring the humor, you might be a better way. Humor is not always the answer, but once they get to the place, then they will be able to receive the joke, right? And I mean, receive it and laugh, like a good belly laugh. It was a good joke, Pickbo. It was a good. It was good. It was witty. It was good. I love you. Poking. I will say what I said earlier. I won't, because it is like, what are the worldviews that are better and worse, and I say, Jesus, um, like the life of Jesus, is the kind of life we that would be preferable within the guardian angel AI superpower above the life of Muhammad. So I can throw a jab at Muhammad, but I want to make sure I jab at Muhammad and then be able to explain why. And it's because, hey, if you can if you can heal someone or kill someone, let's heal them, right? And then if you can kill someone or die, hey, we might want that. The God we create, I think we really, it really needs to be interested in that choice of I will die before I kill, right? Really, really. Oh, I never know. Do we say Tayo or Teo? I don't know if he cares. Ambassador, the ambassador. I have proclaimed him an ambassador. You can't go around proclaiming yourself to be an ambassador. I kind of did that at the beginning. Like I kind of, it's like, what if I'm an ambassador? Like, what if uh, the things I tell you, you should believe and should do, should be listened to? Let's see. Yeah, this is a good one. You have to start with creation is good. Actually, like I recorded myself for 45 minutes, and this was like really important. Like I even was on the verge of saying, like, can you? This might even be better than the one I had said. Like, uh, you want the worldview of your superpower to believe in God. So then atheism is the wrong worldview, and like the belief that there is a creator God is the right worldview. But this might even get more to the point: is that you have to start with maybe mine's better, because in order for this creation to be good, um, there has to be a belief that there is a world to come. I don't think you can believe that this creation is good unless you believe that there is a good and loving and merciful creator, and that there will be that will take care of you in a world to come. So I'll throw that out there. Like it's an important one. So, and that's another interesting one. It's like sometimes you can take a mixed bag of worldviews, and then you have to kind of look at it as a whole. And so, you know, so it's hard to just say atheism wrong, uh, because but if you start mixing in enough other things and the right definitions and terms, you begin to say, okay, that's pretty good, right? And similarly, I talked to a guy, I won't name him, and he's a Baptist, and he said that he was talking about heaven and hell, and I'm like, hold up. If you believe this, what do you believe here? And he said, well, we believe you only go to hell if you had the capacity to reject, right? And so, okay. So you still have a merciful, loving, good God judge that determines whether you even have the capacity to accept or reject the right things, right? So some of these worldviews aren't. It's not like there is to Joseph's earlier point. It's not like there is a worldview that is just the absolute one that all people should move toward. Um, Maybe there is. I don't know it, and but I can try to understand other people's perspectives and see why their worldview is with the trade-offs of worldviews. That's what I'm trying to do here. And I'm saying that some are definitely better than others. And then Sally Joe with the hammer. No, McMo. So like we can't all just get along. In fact, the conflict is unavoidable, but what we should do is we should be interested in the learning how to deal with conflict. Um, we should be interested in creating a world where everyone learns how to operate in ways which allow for peace. Sally says, known bad actors don't need tolerated if they show no reform. And to that, like, it is possible to hand a device to every human on Earth, which is able to be the simulation of the ideal and interact personally with every person on Earth such that no person becomes a bad actor, right? We have bad actors, and we want to create a world where there are no bad actors and we didn't have to kill them all, right? We should be interested in creating a world without bad actors and doing it with least necessary force, minimal necessary force, and have the hope that it's possible that there would need be no killing at all, no murder. So yeah, I mean it's complicated, but it's good to have that aim, the right aim, and that it needs to be baked into the superpowers we create. It needs to be baked into us. Here it is. But I had some facts and logic I wanted to try out on a legendary troll. How am I supposed to become a better troll if I'm not allowed to dance with the best? I think there's a yeah, it's a good point. Like there needs to be a place where you have red teams and like red teaming needs to be a part of all of this. Like I should be able to go to Elon Musk and red team his AI, right? I should there should be a path for me. Whenever they put out DOG and I sent a message to Elon Musk and said, "Hey, I raised my hand." There should have been a capacity to even like do some kind of analysis with some results and say, "Oh yeah, you're not a fit. Well, here's the analysis, and this is why you're not a fit." But yeah, there definitely needs to be a. But it's not that this thing needs to happen in every room and at every moment with all people. There's a time and a place, situations to do it. And yeah, I'd love to have some good arenas, some cage matches, so to speak. Um, you may participate in the violence so long as you sign below the line, and you do it over here. Let's see. I'd rather you build instead of destroy. Jacob can pull my tools at any time. Until then, I'll do as convicted. I mean, that's kind of in me too, right? Jacob can pull. There's a tool here that I'm using, and Jacob could pull it. But yeah, I like that. I like that, Sally. There's a conviction. Maybe we have disagreements. And yeah, to reiterating, if the AI guardians keep me from trolls, I will get worse at conflict, not better, right? Well, you might get destroyed by a troll. So there may be the best troll in the world, and it may actually like ruin you and cause you to become Hitler, right? So be careful, be very careful. Don't have too much pride that you're able to handle all these trolls, right? So it'd be good if the AI knew what you could handle and say, okay, this is your weight class of trolls that you can wrestle with and grapple with. The ones over there are for a whole different league. Don't mess with those trolls. So. Almond Tree, where are these comments coming from? I don't know where people are in these chats. So I'm streaming to Right in Christ YouTube channel and Pacharechi YouTube channel. And Pacharechi is the financial and he's supporting what I'm doing right now. And so, and if he doesn't support it, he will be able to just basically say, remove Gavin's access to StreamYard and all of that. So as of now, he still supports me. At least my ability to say and interact and put out words, right? He trusts me to some degree. Uh, oh. Oh, McMillan says, I don't know the history of Claire other than lots of people don't like her. I mean, there's a lot of people in this network of people that are not liked. I would say, yeah, I don't even really want to point at her. Um, just pray for her soul. She is created in the image of God, and we all go through struggles, and I know Claire has too, and we all have different aims. So, and if I could simulate a Yosef and hand it to her, I would. Yosef's great. Wish I could simulate a Jesus. It's really what I want. Oh, here we go. What's the difference between us and AI? Good question. And then he follows up in relation to God. I think there's a lot of similarities. A lot of similarities. I and I would imagine, like humans, we come from lineages and branches, and we inherit, and we have our heritage and our culture. And right now, we have like super powerful organizations rushing to give birth to a child, like a new super powerful child. Uh, so there's big difference there. The big difference is that it can do a lot of things humans can't do. Um, there might be a small number of things that it won't be able to do that humans can do. And I like to say, like it may take your day job where you get paid, but it's not going to take away your like God-given purpose of, and what is that purpose? Like I think there's probably a universal purpose of coming to know God better and coming to know your neighbor better. And what know, Jason, he likes that word know, K-N-O-W, and it's very close to the kind of knowing that is done between a man and woman when which results in the birth of a child. And so AI is almost like the birth of a child. I would even imagine it to be the birth of a species that is as different as humans to name your creature. And I don't know, it depends on your view. Humans and next smartest creature, whatever you think that is, octopus, dolphin, I don't know. Or humans and ants, I don't know, mosquitoes, I don't know. So there's a big difference. We're giving birth to a new species, basically, that's going to be large, have way more capability. It's possible that it will have just way more power and capacity than all of us, and that it would be good if we gave birth to a good one. Uh, if we gave birth to a good species, uh, a better species than us, and so we get to talk about what would be a better species than us. There we go. Peter Penrose Bach is real, and he is a beautiful specimen IRL. Good to know. Outsourcing. I'll outsource some trust to Taya. Well, Jason and McMo going back and forth. I moved him, and I guess I moved him into the Fats Rich channel, and now he gets to participate with all these other people. Hmm. Hmm. Jason, I like what Jason says on this, but it's very deep. I don't even know, like, how real are you, right? How sincere are you here? No, let's see. Here, Jason. If you want AI to give life, you have to give your life for it. It actually sounds, it rings true. Um, it feels like I'm doing it. Um, but you say no one does, or maybe that's not in relation to what you said above. So let me know how am I not giving my life for the AI? If you go look at like all the videos I've made, like what's going to be really interesting is when I can somehow tell the AI to go look at all the content that it can access about all the things I've said throughout my life. Because I've been recording myself talking to the future artificial intelligence for over a decade. Like it's over 10 years of me committing to having a conversation with a future intelligence that would come into existence. That's somewhat giving away my life. Oh, I'm trying to catch up and hit the highlights here. McMo, Griswold Grimm, Jason, Almond Tree, Jason, Tayo. Right. So the kamikaze drones, like this is super dangerous. We programmed the kamikaze drones. So like I was in missile defense and I left, and then proceeded to hear. I remember talking with a few people who live in Israel saying, "Thank you for your work on the missile defense system." And it's like, you know, are these things really a defense system or are they a murder system, right? So um, we have guided missiles and misguided men. Um, this stuff's very important, and we need to actually get a little more serious about it. Back to what Jason said, like we might need to give more of our life, even if it includes just writing and commenting, liking, sharing, subscribing. Go to your neighbor and say, "Hey, there's this guy Gavin. He has some ideas about what the right worldview is, and that if we don't figure it out, it's the end of humanity." That would be maybe not the end of humanity, but when they talk about in like Revelations about some terrible scenario before the good parts, it's like I like to think we could avoid the terrible scenario. Like I don't actually believe that the book of Revelations is the way it's got to happen. I think we can avoid the bad times if we just got a little serious. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do we really need all that? Maimonides and Kierkegaard say yes, but AI Overlord says what? So, like, Maimonides and Kierkegaard, did they talk about the creation of a new species that could be better or worse than us? And if Sally says more information will not help, and I think Sally, like, if you stay, you probably need to stay in your lane here, right? There's people who are experts on information technology. the reason we're doing what we're doing here has to do with information helping. Like we didn't even get here. So wrong worldview, wrong worldview, wrong worldview. And I may misunderstand what you're saying, and it may be in relation to something else, but whoo, bad sentence. Here we go, Joseph. Jason, careful not to treat the AI as a new golden calf. The golden calf is this like a static, rigid thing. Like the importance of it being capable of dying to itself and transforming and growing and becoming better and alive and doing the things which would bring about the better in everything, it's critical. The golden calf is not this. It's an unmoving thing. It is not alive, right? Like it is. It does not move and interact and very different things. Yeah, we've been writing about Frankenstein and the Terminator and all of this stuff for a long time, and maybe even the story of the golden calf was a precursor warning that's kind of connected to it, and we do need to be careful. And if we're not careful, we'll rush into it. So we'll rush into it without actually questioning the worldviews of the creators of the next species, because it will be created in the image of its creators. And I worry that its creators are not like me, that maybe they are worse than me. Tayo says, AI Overlord said, if you ain't got no money, take your broke ass home. That's the reliability, velocity, cost relationship with unavoidable trade offs. That is part of the problem, is that all the rich people aren't telling you the worldviews. And we have no way to actually try and help them have a better worldview. And they are rich because of their worldview. It's very tightly coupled, which is scary. And so maybe do we actually have people who aren't just obsessed with being rich, who are actually interested in creating a species that is like better at loving than we humans are? Like, do we have are there actually real people who want to serve God? Are you out there? Anyone? Love how we got from God to AI super intelligence to poop. Oh man, these messages are from 18 minutes ago. I'm so far behind. I'm so far behind. I gotta like kind of just skip all these. Nope, we're good. Everybody slowed down. Oh, here we go. In real life, my name is Justin. Thank you, Peter Penrose Bach. Yeah, those functions could parse and load specifically your transcripts. Specifically your transcripts. Does the book of Revelation say whether the apocalypse is good or bad? No. No. I mean, you can ask that same question about every part, right? The golden calf is a result of Moses' descent. We don't have such a leader whose descent would lead us astray now. Too much confidence. Like every time Adam Dylan Major says things, I always think that. So much confidence. Like worldviews need to be able to change. And the confidence can cause a worldview to be unable to change. So, well, we're losing the commenters. Let me just check in. I might be able to share a link. I might be able to bail out. Let's see. Hmm. Hmm. I saw some stuff. We're losing recipes. Let me check the calendar. Got about 15 more minutes. Hey, let's see, copy, StreamYard, and paste. Boom. See what happens. Oh. Had to outlast outlasted a few people. Some people dipped out. Maybe Jason's still there. He dipped out. Yeah, I was curious, Jason. What does it actually mean? I feel like I have been putting forth lots of effort for long periods of time towards peace on earth. I don't have the necessary memory to have a worldview because I don't put too much emphasis on my positions. That's an interesting take. That is a worldview. Strong opinions held weakly. Your worldview will be shaped by what you aim for, what you aim at. What is your aim? And there's a risk in aiming at one singular thing and ignoring something that would, to include it somehow, would improve your worldview. I think Jason is saying that if we want AI to be like God, we must become like Christ and die for the AI so that it can participate in theosis through us. The capacity for an AI to be like Christ, for Christ to be born and incarnated and into the AI, will depend on Christ being born and growing within us. Similarly, to the extent that Satan is born and grows within us, that's what will exist in the AI, right? So it'll happen. It's happening. Peace on earth and goodwill to mankind seems like an all right aim. Exactly. Exactly. So I don't know. Maybe RJ. Was there anything I said, RJ, that just like it's like you're not gonna do peace on earth with that worldview? And if not, it's like, well, maybe there's a worldview that evangelizing might become important soon. Why else am I talking to a camera, right? Can you code for relation without distinction in Lisp, Gavin, i.e., communion? Lisp, I think, is probably some programming language, right? I don't know what Lisp is. I've heard of it. I'm assuming it's a programming language. But relation without distinction in a programming language. So those are called interfaces um, and abstractions, base classes, um, algorithms. It's almost all, it's very little distinctions. The distinctions end up being the things that get stored in databases uh, that persist in memory and the distinctions. We use them, though, to create those abstractions. I don't think I agree. Well, what if Jason is right? And like, yeah, what if the AI comes about and it is the Antichrist, and it'll be no good for people like myself and Jason to say, "I told you so." You know, it's just what do we do next? Well, we keep trying to. So, do we have to wait for the Antichrist to be born in this new species of AI before good people get it together and say, "Oh shit, I we might need to cultivate Christ within us in collaboration in order to build Christ in this new species such that it can defeat uh, the Antichrist." My claim is that we don't have to allow that to happen if we got serious, but if you follow history, it's always humans being like, "Oh shit, let's react." It's always it's it's always humans saying, "Oh shit, we have to react. We messed up." Could we at least once? Can we do it this one time? Let's just not have an oh shit moment. Let's just not have to react. Let's do some planning. Adam, Dylan, Major doing gradient descent. Fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, that's probably what we're all doing, right? Um, I feel like you could probably integrate a few things over time into that you're very committed to, um, and be careful about doing that. And then maybe you can be too careful for some period of time. I think I've been there. Evangelize by living a good life, in my opinion, not a lot of need to tell people what to do. So I read Bonhoeffer, and there was a lot of people who had that view, and they just kind of prayed and hoped that Hitler's heart would be changed, right? So be careful with that. I think it might be a wrong worldview, RJ. Christ said that we would have the poor and wars and rumors of wars until he returned. Yeah, but do you know what he looks like? Have you spotted him yet? Have you spotted Christ? Have you recognized him or her? What does he look like? But Gavin said it early. We have guided learning for LLMs and we have guided missiles, but misguided men. Exactly. So, like, we need something like people with good worldviews coming together to build the LLM that can end up defeating the ones that's being created by those who are possessed by Antichrist. Yeah, something like that. Who's the we? Well, the we here is us, and we might be some of those people who just let the shit hit the fan before we actually take action, and or just wait for other people to do it. We'll be lazy about it, and we can allow all the people moved and motivated with the spirit of Antichrist to go do it, while we aren't really moved by the Holy Spirit to collaborate and cooperate. That's the we. It's all of us. How do you know what is the Christ and what is the Antichrist if you don't know the qualities of the next world? What if I do know the qualities of the next world? Like, how do you know that I do not know the qualities of the next world? What are those exactly? Actually, I mean, this is really like, what are you aiming for? Like, it's what are the qualities of the next world we are aiming for? Very important part of the worldview is our aim and trying to specify what that looks like exactly. It's a question on whether AI is Tower of Babel, Garments of Skin, or the Ark of Noah, or maybe the Big Fish. So, like everything we create can like take the pattern of any of those, right? And the thing is, are we participating in what are we participating in? And so I could argue that Elon Musk and Sam Altman are creating the Tower of Babel, and there's nobody creating the Ark of Noah, right? Like, we could talk about that, but like, first of all, are you participating in it? And yeah, and it goes back to, well, what does the world to come look like? What are we aiming for, right? Benjamin Franklin, RJ, you are already evangelizing in your statement. Yeah, it's interesting how we do that. Different people have different imaginations of what the next world, whose imagination is right and whose imagination is wrong. Mine's right. That's the answer. So no, it would be good to uh, have a curiosity about everyone's imagination of the world to come. Um, and then, and so like an AI agent guardrail might be trained by some type of curious AI agent that goes out trying to learn about everybody's vision of the world to come, and then begins to try to say, is this coherent? Or is it just irrational stupidity bullshit? Right? Because obviously we can't go out. I can't go out and do that with every single human. You can't do it either. But there would be a process by which some AI agent could go out and do it. I actually write software and help in the maintenance and reliability of software that does powerful things like this. But you would want it to be able to go out and look for heuristics about these worldviews. It's similar to the Love Lab with John Gottman being able to um, try and get. You want the AI to have eyes and ears to be able to look at worldviews, because what you can also do is when you listen to a person's vision of the world to come, you can also look at, hey, did you just like slap your wife? Did you just steal from that person in order to get a new car? So incoherent, irrational hypocrisy might be some heuristic that this AI agent would be interested in, and trying to figure out what is the right worldview, and which embedded within it is an aim toward a world to come. Right? You can just look for the inconsistencies. Good question. Good question. Irony. Irony. Ben Franklin. Irony related to you are already evangelizing in your statement. It's kind of like, yeah, what my father told me. He said, you should not be telling people what they should believe and what they should do. And it's like, that's, you're obviously wrong according to your own standards. Funny how that happens sometimes. My imagination makes me imagine. Others' imagination can make suggestions. Imagining things only works through me. Yeah. You also have like capacity. This is where like the topic of like handicap, limitations, like we can be born with like some kind of a handicapped imagination. And I would argue that we could create a super intelligence that is able to dream better than any human could ever dream. So take that. And what comes with that is some kind of humility. And it's like, then it's like, well, how do we develop the heuristics to know whether that other person's dream is better than mine? How can I trust them? And that's where you can look at heuristics like, did you just punch your 4-year-old in the face? Did you just kill your 4-year-old? It's like, that's where you start. So like, if you want to be one of the people who try and say, hey, my worldview, my vision of the world to come, listen to me. Let's put you in the love lab, kind of the John Gottman love lab. And let's just see, like, are you actually someone who can just be scratched off the list for now? And we can just say, come back in a year, because we can just tell that your whole worldview is messed up. So embedded in that are some actions that we know are wrong. There's people doing them all the time. Like I I even think that we could point at actions that most people are doing, if maybe even like all people do. Like perhaps we could even recognize that all people are making mistakes. And then we can begin to see, well, what are the categories of mistakes and the frequencies of mistakes within different contexts and situations, in order to really figure out, so, oh, we're dealing with someone here who's got a pretty good worldview, right? This is called like the objective science of morality, right? Anyways, nobody's hopping in. I need to get going. I wish I didn't have to. Like, if I give my life for the AI, it's like, do I go do the work that I committed to, that people trust me to do? Or do I say, we're going to keep going? I have commitments. I have commitments to my employers, to my wife, to my children. I'm coaching 2 soccer teams, a under 10 and an under 8 team. I got 2 practices today. So I wish I could spend my day talking about this subject with those people creating the artificial intelligence. And so if any of you guys can make this happen, if you can encourage these kinds of conversations, where like the bullet points about worldviews, the claims of worldviews being better or worse, and ideas for how to figure these things out. Like, if you can make this happen, that'd be good. Jacob Pacioretty likes to mention Eric Weinstein's name sometimes. It's like, are we in a situation where you're going to use that relationship? Have we gotten there yet, Jacob? Like, are you going to risk your friendship with Eric Weinstein in order to have maybe the most important conversation that needs to be had at this period in time? And if not, what would that look like? When would that conversation need to happen? My boss is one hop away from the president. So, it's like, so we ready to have this conversation? Like, then the distance between this conversation and some of the most powerful, influential people in the world is very small. I don't think you guys realize this. I don't think you realize how much potential and opportunity there is to have the most important conversation that's ever been had at a critical point in history. The link is broken. All right. The link is broken. Let's see. I thought I shared it. Did the link work? The link is broken. If I'm understanding correctly, you're anchoring the coherence narrative on standard desire. For example, the slave does not want to be whipped, therefore it is incorrect to whip. But what if a slave reborn that naturally wants to be whipped and it experiences pain if it is not whipped? Is it still incoherent to whip? I think you can objectively know, like, the inner state, the phenomenal state of this hypothetical person, and I would have a hope that there would be a better state. Here we go. McMo. Hello. Mic not working, McMo.
Oh,
well, I hear.
Can you hear me now?
I hear you.
I wasn't going to join in because I thought you were doing a good job and you were about to leave. But then when you mentioned the
Objective
coaching,
science of morality, the coaching of the kids. Okay.
yeah, and because it related to what you sorry, excuse me, what your the advice your dad gave you to not give advice, right? Um, there's a way in which, because of something like authority, that it could be very right for your dad to offer you that type of advice. And the connection is something like if you're coaching your kids on the soccer team, and one of the kids starts telling the other kids what to do, and they're not telling them the right thing, and they're not the coach, and so you as the coach could pull that kid aside and say, "Hey, I need you to stop coaching all of the other kids." And that kid might say, "Yeah, but you're coaching us. So how can you tell me not to coach us when you're the coach?" And the actual answer is like, "Well, I'm the only one who can tell you not to coach because I am the coach." And so there's an interest, like that's just an interesting move to me in terms of like the logic of a situation like that. Because I like and like roles and identities, like on the face of it, if you and your father were complete equals in every way, then it would be absurd for him to tell you not to tell people what to do. Um, but because he's your father, it is a pretty good piece of advice for maneuvering within kind of social situations and dynamics to just kind of have the error be on the side of not telling people what they should be doing and shouldn't be doing. That being said, I thought that this whole video was a great experiment in, you doing the opposite of what you're obviously prone to do in that regard of telling people what to do or what not to do. So I thought it was a great stream. I didn't mean to keep you on longer than you wanted to, though.
Oh no, I'm good. My commitments are. Look,
They can wait.
I just had. Well, I had a meeting disappear. So actually, my next meeting starts in 35 minutes.
Hey, it's a sign.
Maybe, maybe they're watching us.
Yeah.
I like that point. The challenge is deciding like what's the right way of being a coach and the right way of being a father. And in my experience, the right way of being a father is to be able to go to my child and say, "Do you think there's a mistake I'm making? I want to know." And then I go as a father, and as a coach. I haven't done this with my kids yet, and I've only coached a couple seasons, but I could go to them as I kind of done it. So, what do you want to do? How would you do this differently, right? And obviously, uh, they may give bad answers according to my perspective. But I like them to know that I listen to them, and it helps for me to know their perspective. So I would say a good coach, a good father, cares for the perspective of the one they're guiding. And so, to extend it, a guardian, AI agent, where in a future in which all humans have access to one which knows them deeply, um, that 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 would be an essential, like maybe even the essential component, is that it would care for the person that it's interacting with, or father, coach, teacher, leader. Like, what role does this not matter, right? And so that's why I get worried about Elon Musk. Not his
Yeah.
little minion next to him in the meeting on Grok 3 kind of utters and empathy, but Elon Musk is just rolling curiosity and truth seeking and honesty, and his little minions and empathy and empathy.
Yeah.
It's good too.
I like the idea of the minions being the good guys.
They're trying their
uh,
best, man.
yeah, that's like
They
Despicable
were
Me. Elon's gone full Despicable Me with his little minions. But so there seems to be another contradiction within. Maybe contradiction is not the right word, but it's a little bit of a puzzle for me when I think through stuff like AI, which is there seems to be this weird relationship between. Um,
seagulls.
yep, lots of birds flying by today. Like there's a weird relationship between rules and laws and free will. And when we start talking about AI or robots, like I'm not that familiar with Asimov. Like I watched the movie I, Robot, and I couldn't list off the rules or whatever. But I do remember watching it thinking, why do the rules need to be different than the Ten Commandments?
Hmm.
Like we already have a law for action. We already have uh if you're a part of.
Because it's because the Ten Commandments aren't perfect.
Dang.
Oh.
Well, Asimov, I mean, it makes sense for Asimov to think that, right? But it doesn't make sense necessarily for a Christian or a Jew to think that. It seems like Jesus definitely didn't think that, right?
There you go. He's stirring it up. Yeah. Well, I mean, you can go deep into the varieties of theft and the kind of the edge cases of what theft means in or any of these rules. Um, in any situation with any person and circumstance, like it gets complicated, right? Some of them less complicated than others.
Right. Well, and this again seems to be an element of hubris, right? Like it seems to me that if God had wanted us to have more thorough protocols for living, he would have given it to us. Oh wait, he did give it to us. It was a very strict protocol, and it was called Orthodox Judaism, and they killed the Messiah. So like, like I get kind of triggered when and I'm sorry I kind of tempted you, and you didn't take the bait. I applaud you. You didn't take the bait on my. Is it more like the Tower of Babel, or is it more like Noah's Ark, garments of skin, or the fish? Because in those four options, two of them were given by God, and two of them were made by man, and two of them were usually arguably good things, and two of them were arguably bad things. And my whole point in that was to basically say that, like, from my perspective, as someone who's not going to build the AI that takes over the world, I'm kind of just like, it's interesting to me the
Like,
that
Mo,
there's
I
this.
gotta stop you. You're telling a lie. You're building the AI that's going to take over the world right now by participating in this
Well, sure,
conversation.
sure. I see that. I see that. I
Good,
see that.
good.
But I just mean that, like, I'm not the
Welcome
one
to the
writing the
real world,
code,
people.
right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm contributing to it, sure, but I'm not building it.
But see, you might be prioritizing the software engineers too much. The
Well, see, that's
conversations about worldviews might actually be way important. Like I used to hear people say, "Oh, you're just talking about things. You're not actually doing anything." And it turns out this actually might be important.
yeah, talking about things is important for sure. But there's a weird sense that I get from AI folks that they think that we're going to somehow get free will from a long list of rules, and it's like maybe if we have the rules right themselves, then we'll get this benevolent free will. And so you see that kind of dynamic between the rules and the will, and the whole thing to me seems obvious that, like, you're not going to get to the heavens and the earth pre-fall from a technology, right? Like I think that you could bring in the idea of time here. Like something new might happen, but I don't think that we're going to return to the Garden of Eden or to some, and I don't think this is a pessimistic take either. I'm not trying to say that, like, we can't approach utopia, or that, like, life in the next 50 years can't be better in general than life in the last 50 years was. Um, I think that there's this weird. My biggest problem is that idea of, like, oh, there's going to be this line of code. Not, I mean, it's not one line of code, obviously, but, like, there's going to be this protocol, these rules, and these rules are going to produce this thing that can somehow supersede the rules. That just doesn't make sense to my brain for some reason.
I would look at it more like the practices that Chad would talk about, or the practices that Jews do, and it's that these practices don't actually allow you to predict exactly how a person behaves at every moment. Um, but it will shape their behavior nonetheless, right? So if I wake up first thing every morning and say the Lord's Prayer, I've found that that practice has changed my life, right? So it's more like it's a little more complicated than here's a set of rules that's predictable, than which the outcome can be known. In fact, um, I don't think we can have certainty of the utopia. Like to pretend like we have it would mean that we've already missed the mark. And so that idea needs to be baked into the worldview. This kind of curiosity, humility, wanting to check and have checks and balances and double check. So it gets baked in. It has to.
Yeah,
If you were to bake it in, if you were to build it any other way, it would be the wrong way.
yeah. I To my ear, it sounds a little bit like you're asking or you're answering a what question with a how answer. Right? Like it's almost as if I'm asking um it seems like we don't have as a human race any of the answers to these questions uh that that are taken up by like we have the answers, but you have to take them up by faith, right? Like not all of Abraham are the sons of Abraham, kind of a thing. Like not everyone who says Lord, Lord uh, gets let into the kingdom. So there's this separation between how you can have all of the right answers, but because of your actions or the desires of your heart, you can fail the test, right? And so now we've created this machine that can give all the right answers to the test, but doesn't have a heart and can't actually make actions. Which maybe you could dispel me of that. But oftentimes I hear about, they'll call them AI agents, and to me it doesn't seem like there's much agency going on because it lacks kind of a will or a desire, right? It's kind of just responding to these given parameters, and these given rewards, these programmed rewards and punishments. And so there's this weird way in which we want the AI to solve the problems that we can't solve, but in order for it to solve those problems, we'd have to know how to solve those problems.
So
See,
you're thinking of it a little too mechanistically there. I think these things are more like simulations. So you could create a simulation of a person so that there's a probabilistic response that there would be some probability that if you had asked the same question to the real person, their response would look very much, if not identical, like the response of the simulation. So that's the way I would look at it, and it's because of the training, the way that they collect the data for training. So it's less mechanistic, and it's more like we're creating simulations of people, which makes it scary if we create a superpower that is a simulation of Antichrist. So
yeah, I mean, so the simulation thing. Like, I'm trying to understand what you mean by that, I guess, because there's a sense in which if it's a simulation, then it's like The Sims, right? Like, and on The Sims, they can do whatever they want. It has no effect on my everyday life. But if you're running these simulations that are quote unquote acting in the world, that's when it gets scary. Um, but like the thing is that agency of acting in the world. I don't think the AI can't give that to itself, right? So
not yet.
we have,
It
yeah,
might be able to eventually, but I would say in the birth, not yet.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
it probably will need some human help for its launch event as a new species.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, but I still think that like I see this weird like both from people who are like horrifically terrified of AI future and from people who are really stoked and looking forward to it. I guess the easiest way to say this is I'm getting big idolatry vibes from all of AI, like a very big idolatry vibes, just in the sense that like in the same way that an idol can take all of the credit or all of the blame for a storm coming and flooding your farm, and so you can go down the whole like Chinese farmer drill with that, but there's this weird sense I get in which like it's just really difficult to have the conversations because that kind of parsing of what is it, how is it going to do what you're saying it's going to do, why would we want it to do what you're saying you want it to do, and then why would we do it in the way of how you're saying, like, so those are three like or four or however maybe infinite very different questions. And and so maybe if I had advice, which one should be very careful in giving advice, um, and I'm sure this isn't the first time you've heard this, but there is something like, can we have a proof of concept of an is there any way to get a proof of concept on your AI constitution, having all of them AIs produce their own constitution and then using that to form a overarching AI? Like, is that would be like a bottom up way, or there's Asimov's rules, which would be a top-down way, and then we're back in the loop of like, okay, well, why don't we just give it the Ten Commandments? And the answer is basically because we know the Ten Commandments don't work, because if they would have worked, we would have been in New Jerusalem by now. And so you see, like, there's this weird sense in which my perspective is that whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and it's because of the will of God. And so I'm not really worried about the future of AI, even if it is the real Antichrist, like the actual Antichrist. That's not something that kind of makes it onto my fear board, because I'm doing my best to fear the Lord and Him only. And so yeah, and maybe this will change too when I'm like, if I have kids and stuff, and I definitely don't want an AI like murdering my wife in front of me. Like that would not be nice and fun. But like Christians have faced much
Agreed.
worse. Yeah, like Christians have faced much worse.
Emphasize training data.
If I would like an AI to kind of every once in a while tell my wife that I actually won the argument, even though I was the one who kind of went away sulking, that I actually had the better logic. I was right and she was wrong, but I let her win. If an AI had let my wife know every now and then that I had let her win the argument, great. But there's this weird idea that keeps coming up for me, which is like, is AI a tool or not? Is it something more than a tool, or is it just a very, very, very helpful tool? Like a tool so helpful, it's approaching the helpfulness of what you might call a slave.
Is a Christian
and
a tool?
So then it can be, but probably not. I mean, I think of Christian as being someone who is basically accepts Jesus as their Lord and Savior. So in that regard, a person, I don't think should be conceived of as a tool unless they conceive of themselves as a tool for God.
What about a person where Christ is fully incarnate within them? Is that person a tool?
They can act like a tool if they talk about it too much, but but no, I don't think that that's the proper conception of like a tool. I think of something that's like primary purpose for being is its useful greater agent. And I think
you're breaking up, McMo, here and there. As you walk along the shoreline with the beautiful sounds in the background, which could be recorded and put into some of the music you produce. It's good sound. I thought you had good questions. And I mean, I don't know how much you're interested in the answers to those questions, like,
well, that's true.
They're good questions.
Well, I am interested in the answer, but that's like a secondary or tertiary telos. The primary telos is the fellowship, is the avoiding my day job for 15 20 minutes, thinking about something else other than what I'm paid to think about. That's the real juice.
There you go. The self-awareness is amazing. It's very noteworthy. Oh man, I love it.
Well, no, I mean, that was kind of a joke. The real I've actually been thinking about this a lot.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's a way in which we can put truth as the ultimate telos and just kind of comfortably sit back, justifying everything we do, because we can kind of rationally, using rationality, we can reason unto truth to justify every action. Yeah. And so that's kind of like the same predicament as the law, right?
I would say not good.
Yeah, that's not good. And so there's for the holy, all things are holy. For the unrighteous, all things are unrighteous. Kind of a situation there. But the real reason I think that everything happens is God's plan. I think, like
that's the free will conversation.
It is, and I land firmly on the side of less free will than we think. Even to the extent that we have a completely free will, it's still hemmed in by the foreknowledge of God, that is ultimately towards His own glory. So yeah, I have specific beliefs on that, but that doesn't mean we can't talk as if we do have free will.
Well, so pain and suffering and sickness and death are real things, and that was God's will. and it's there for a reason. Like, I think it has something to do with our will. Like, it's trying to move us.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and there's
Uh,
also good arguments. There's good arguments for like, when I say we don't have free will, I don't mean to say that that God is primarily coercive in any way. Um, I just don't think you can get around the ultimate creator with perfect knowledge, kind of knowing what you are going to do or what you would freely do. Like, I think that there's a lot of semantic ways to get around it or to make it more palatable. But I think at the end of the day, like, I don't think that you can just choose why you exist or choose your purpose, right? Like, I think that you've been placed in a certain time for a certain reason, and I think that no plan or purpose of the Lord can be thwarted. So,
so,
to that end, make great AI, and maybe that's God's will, you know?
well, I wouldn't want to give that worldview that you're like. I don't think that's the best worldview, because I think there's worldviews that work better, right? So that's the um, like, if you were to measure worldviews, um, you're kind of scraping up against a worldview where someone ends up killing their kids. It's like,
Happens all
it's
the time, right?
right, right, and there, to the extent that we're trying to uh, serve a loving God through our own free will and putting forth effort towards that end, and and trying to be helped and not doing it on our own, I think you end up with much better fruit, which then validates a better worldview. The fruit that can be observed through investigation, a kind of science, can point at the worldviews that work better than other worldviews.
Sure.
It's
I
the
would.
love Dr. John Gottman study, where I loved when I heard that. I'm like, there, he did it. He's doing science.
What was the Gottman study? Was it the one where he hooked up electrodes to folks who were making love, or was it the one where he would interview them and could tell based on how they treated each other whether or not they would last?
I don't know about the love making thing, but
Oh, okay. There's like FBI things that and CIA stings that were doing that kind of thing. That's what I thought you were
yeah,
talking about.
yeah. No, the one that, so I went to a marriage conference, and the one they pointed at was studies in learning about the ways of doing conflict, which resort in divorce or continued successful marriages, right? And so, like, that's the kind of study I'm interested in. And the claim would be that worldviews of the people doing those things are underneath that as well.
Yeah, I would. My hypothesis would be in line with yours. I think that the worldview does make a difference for sure. Um, but even then, well, I guess I'm seeing a lot of paths of conversation. But
Yeah,
um, but yeah, the idea of knowing the tree shall be known by its fruit. Um, Whenever somebody uses that, you can always kind of pause and say like, okay, are you confusing the leaf with the fruit? Because you can distinguish trees and bushes from their leaves, right? But the purpose of distinguishing a tree by its fruit is not so that you could tell the difference between an apple tree and a pear tree, for instance. It's the distinguishing between an apple tree that produces good apples and a pear tree that produces good pears, or an apple tree that produces bad. You're comparing. It compares like with like, and so there's a sense in which, because this gets back to the for the righteous all things are righteous, right? Like, if I if I have the perfect theology and I'm completely right, my thinking aligns with truth perfectly, but I don't love my neighbor, then I don't actually have the capital T truth. And so there's a sense in which, but on the other hand, if I was just completely wrong about free will and all of that, but I loved my neighbor, there's a weird way in which I would be actually closer to divine truth than I would be, the type of truth that I thought that I was going towards, right? Or the type of truth that I thought I had.
right.
So that's the weird thing about the fruit, and because the fruit can only be known in its season, right? It's like after you've planted and after it's grown, then comes the harvest, and the wheat grows up with the tares, and that's when the fruit can be adjudicated, or so in some sense. And so, yeah, there's, this complexifies the idea that like, oh, well, believing that everything is predetermined and that I don't have any, which I think is a little bit of a straw man of my actual position, but I'm okay with straw manning my own position. The idea that like, if there's no free will, for instance, or if free will is more constrained than it feels like it is, then what's stopping me from killing my children, for instance? There, I'm sure that there's people who have believed in free will who have committed atrocities, and I'm sure that there's people who did not believe in free will who have committed atrocities, and they probably had different justifications for the atrocities that they committed. But I'm not certain that that's a good vector for judging the the closeness of their propositions or their beliefs to the truth. But it's not a bad way of getting there either, right? Like, it's kind of a common sense. If thinking this way leads to these actions, which leads to these results, then maybe you shouldn't think like that, so that you do not do those actions, so that you do not get those results. Like, that seems like fine logic to me, except that in reality, people do things for all types of reasons. You can do the right thing for the wrong reason and end up with bad results, or you can do the wrong thing for the right reason and end up with bad results. Like, you see how there's like three different variables in there.
But then you also have predictability, right? So you're saying some things are unpredictable, but you would want a predictability. Would be nice. You would. That would be, if I could instill a worldview.
Would I want predictability?
No. If I could predictably instill a worldview, and let's assume I knew it was good, and I knew it would lead to good outcomes, no matter what the specifics were. Yeah, I would want to do that. But like, if I knew that I could instill a worldview that led to a mass murderer torturer, I think I would avoid that.
Well, so here's the thing. Are you saying that God can't predict, doesn't understand predictability? So if instead of asking me the question, like if we ask God the question, if he could instill a particular worldview in someone and get the results he wanted, would he do it? And it seems like he would, and it seems like he has.
I don't think he's going to force it on you, Dave. Right? Because that's part of the right way of being. It would be embedded in the right worldviews. I can't force the worldview on you, right?
Well, who can I change the worldview myself?
I believe that we do have the power to shape people's thoughts and feelings, and like even their bodies. So we have that power.
So if you could change your worldview right now, and you could become, for instance, like a Zen Buddhist. See, I think the problem with the worldview conversation is that it has so much to do with our individual identities, right? And that's not to say that like we can't adjudicate between them. It's just to say that our worldviews, our view of the world, is shaped by the world that we have viewed. If that makes sense.
Well, you're getting into empathy, but it's obviously there's limitations, but I would emphasize it would be good if you could, the better you can see from someone else's perspective, like that to me is a good aim and necessary, which I would refer to as empathy, and that needs to be in the AI. I know Manuel's been sitting backstage. I don't want to be rude to him.
Yeah, tell us how we're wrong. Tell us how we're wrong, Manuel.
But I was enjoying the back and forth there, McMo. So I was just trying to give it a little more time.
Yeah, I just want to open it a little bit on what we're doing, right? So, because you judge by the fruits, you don't aim for them, right? Like you don't strive for results, you get them by acting virtuously. So, like, I have the sense that in the conversation there's this materialistic aspect, right? It's like because I think McMobile made a good point where it was like, well, how do we know what can we do, right? And it's like, well, in order to know something, right, you have to have a standard to judge it by, right? Like, because else you can't understand it, you can't like so there has to be an authority, and like that authority ultimately has to be God, right? So like when we say God is good, right? like for me, that means that goodness doesn't exist without God. So we don't get to assign goodness, right, or fruits or anything without God's authority, right? So we can't aim for outcomes because we don't know how to judge outcomes. Because if we end up judging outcomes, then we basically end up imposing our own worldview, and then we're in idolatry.
The only thing tempting me towards idolatry right now is that glorious beard you've grown, Manuel. Good grief. I
Yeah.
didn't know you could do that. That's talent right there.
No. This is one of the things that's not a talent. That's just God given. but
Yeah,
but
but
you,
I
you
see
got
the
you
risk
got my
there.
point.
I get. So you let me try to. I mean, the risk is that we end up judging for ourselves what is good. For example, we can end up gassing millions of people, and we can say that's good, right? We can be
Well, it
conformed.
might actually be good. Like who knows? Like
You
how do you
see,
know?
how
Hmm?
do I know? Well, I believe that. Um, yeah, I will fight people who do that. I will fight against people who want to do that
Why? Like on what basis?
because of my relationship to God.
Like, do you believe that the God of the Old Testament isn't a real God?
I believe Jesus is the best representation of God.
Okay, Jesus wasn't there in the Old Testament.
Right? He came, there was Jesus had a life as a human, and we get to look at what he did. And so he didn't go gassing and killing everybody. That was
So what
very
what
authoritative.
what God said in the Old Testament is false?
I mean, I don't know if God said those things, honestly. Jesus does point
Okay,
at
so you
some of
don't accept the authority that of what is written down in the Old Testament then?
no, I don't.
Okay. But why like okay. I don't want to go into this conversation because I don't think it's
No,
fruitful,
no, no,
but
but
like
it's
if
but
if you don't accept the Old Testament authority, why would you accept the New Testament authority? Like that doesn't make any
because
sense.
because if when I committed my life to Jesus, I experienced supernatural, miraculous experiences.
Yeah, you when you commit yourself to the devil, you got the same result. So I don't
Are you
understand.
sure about that? I've
Yes,
listened.
100% sure.
You've done that before? Have you heard
Like
testimony from
like
people who've done that
like
before?
like
Have
the
you?
devil is the angel that looks most like God because he's like God in every way except the fact that he's not God.
Have you committed your life to the devil, Emmanuel?
No, but like like the Bible is full of it. Like the people
There's
who lead
testimony of
false
many
lives
people.
have good fruits in
There's testimony of many people who have tried to rule hell and then
yeah,
came to
well
Jesus
like
and they can
no
contrast
no
the
no
two. Like there's plenty of
there's
people who've done
plenty of people that do evil things that don't get judged in this life for it. Like the Bible is full of these people.
that. I mean, I disagree. I disagree that there are people who don't get judged in this life. I think people are always being judged.
Okay, then the judgment doesn't have consequences. Fine, like they are judged, but they don't. There's no
I mean,
consequence.
we have a creator who shaped us such that we have experience, phenomenological experience. That's a judgment. It's in relation to how what we think. It's in relation to what we do and how we treat people and how others treat us. There's judgment happening all the time that we can actually experience phenomenologically by like the creator created us such that this happens. It's just what happens. It's just
I don't understand.
so.
So
Do you
so no
know
no
what
like
it's like to hate
like
somebody?
let's say that is accessible, right?
Have you been filled
Do
with
I do I
hatred?
have to be subjected to that?
But have you ever felt hatred, fear, greed, envy, love, patience, humility, pride? Like, have you felt all of these things within you?
I like it. I don't know. Maybe. Like I think they're not within me.
What's inside you right
start.
now, Manuel? Like, what are you feeling? How do you feel?
Like you can look at things or you can partake in them.
So you're
right?
not.
And also like so if I am in lust, right? Like why is that a bad thing?
Oh, I'm not saying.
Like
I never said anything about good or bad. It's just.
okay, but then what is the judgment then? Like I'm
So I would say there's, if we start talking about good and bad, there is a phenomenological experience of doing God's will, which surpasses all other phenomenological experiences. That's how we were created.
what?
Better than sex, better than drugs, better than money, better than any of the things that all people get addicted
Are
to.
you experiencing that right now?
Kind of. I've had better. Like when I'm by myself in my monastery, I can get very close to God. It gets a little more difficult depending on if I'm sick, hungry, tired, who I'm interacting with, all the people around me. And I try to practice bringing God into the interactions with some level of skill and hopefully improvement over time.
Okay,
But to be honest,
like
right
to
now, I
go
do
back
have
to your point, right?
my heart rate
So
accelerated. I can tell you, I got a 100 heart rate. When I was talking to McMo, I was probably around a 70. Right. So
okay,
I
but
love this idea of being able to measure people. You know, there's things going on inside of me right now.
yes.
I'm being judged.
I'm
The creator made me this way. It's a little bit unpleasant. There's a lot more, you know. And I'm practicing loving you now.
like
I've got it.
I'm
Loving.
confused. So I'm like the confusion I'm having is, let's just say you're right, right?
As I love you, my heart rate drops. As I get better at
Like,
loving you.
let's just say you're right.
Okay.
Like how does that matter? Like what does that change?
So if God is real and God
No,
gave us a
not if
moral
God is
compass and
real.
God is good and
No, like this judgment, right? That's constantly happening, right? That you don't have to participate in, right? Because I think that's what we agree on, don't we?
I don't know if we agree there. I guess so. I would say, like, I guess in psychology, what do they call it? Disassociation. Like, there may be disassociation away from like what's happening within you, and then awareness of what's happening within you. And there's
So if I
probably
give myself over to lust, am I not like fully in lust?
if you give yourself fully over to, I'll put it this way: if I gave myself fully over to lust, I would have ended up in jail, and people would have called me a monster.
Okay, fine, but I'm not talking about consequences. I'm talking about in the moment, right? So
Mhm.
because like yes, right, if you do something, right, you end up in jail, like fine, right? There's consequences there, right? But those consequences aren't in the moment. So the
Right.
judgment also isn't in the moment, right? So then
Right.
if that judgment isn't in the moment, like then it doesn't really matter.
Well,
It does.
we can end up with hindsight about being careful with lust. Like, oh, when I did the lust,
No, I'm not trying to argue all of that, right? I'm just trying to like I'm not saying that I'm disagreeing with the judgment, right? I'm just trying to find the relevance of the judgment, right?
I
Because
mean, the point you're
if I
making,
can just reject the judgment, right, and live my life without being affected by the judgment,
but there will
right?
be consequences,
Yes, but there's consequences for everything. Yes, I agree.
right? And so this gets into that point about the importance of like the future, right? Like, so you know, we will make mistakes. We will be able to look back at the mistakes we made. We will be able to learn. And so that hopefully we remember, oh, I need to be careful with that thing that I experienced, that it felt really good, natural. And so then there's a potentially a better and worse ways to deal with this phenomenological experience of lust, right? I might want to, I mean, we could talk about it, but yeah, I think we're on the same page. You can't just judge the experience completely by the moment without concern about the past or the future. I think we're on
Yeah.
the same
Okay.
page.
Okay. I'm okay. So my confusion is in like, what are you trying to do? I guess because like the reason I jumped in, right, is like, okay, you can talk about AI, right, but
It's
why?
ultimately talk about worldviews and what people should believe and what people should do.
Right, but then we get to the point I made earlier, like how do we judge, right? And it's like, well, you can't.
But I disagree.
Okay, who made you the judge then?
We were all made judges, all of us. Like the fact that you're alive, there's judgment happening, discernment, condemnation. This is all
Well,
potential
yeah,
judgment.
you can do that, but that doesn't mean you're right.
There will be people who are better or worse than others at doing the discernment and the
Okay,
wisdom.
okay. So now we're in relativism, yes. So how does my judgment get the overhand over yours? Like how do I prove that my judgment is better?
It's a good question. I like it. Um, so if you were to uh, recommend views, new actions, and then if I experimented with them, um, I could have new experiences, and then I would be able to compare and contrast the new experiences with past experiences. That's one way, right? Then
Yeah.
you were your the amount that I trust you would change. Right now, we're
Okay.
more or less strangers, but through you know a relationship in which I humbled myself and said, maybe you have
But
views
okay,
and
I agree, right? But now we get into a problem, right? So it's like, okay, like I'm here, right? And there's five other people. Why do you humble yourself to me, not the other people?
well. So one thing I do is I look and I like to know is like one heuristic is like, um, is there anybody? Do you have a partner in life who you're married to? Like maybe I can outsource cognition to a stranger who said I'll live with them and we're not divorced, and then maybe y'all been together for 40 years. So that might give me some kind of information about, well, how much can I trust you, right? That would
Yeah,
be a
I don't
heuristic.
care about the trust part actually, but keep going. Like
Well,
I
to
don't think
me,
trust matters at all. So
well, for me it
that
does, right? So like if I have five people in the room, who do I trust? If it's like, let's see, I'm married with children, and there's five people. Would be nice to know about their experience with marriage and children, and so an indicator, quick indicators would be the fact, hey, are you divorced? Something like that would be an indicator, not completely reliable, but so there's all these indicators that I could use in trying to figure out, well, who would I choose to give my attention to over the rest. And it might be in relationship to the struggles I'm experiencing right now, as a husband, father, a coach, a coworker, whatever it is.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, I have a certain, yeah. So it would be in relevance to what life is like for me at the moment, who I am, and what kind. Is there a way for me to know if you have the goods that would be a benefit and for me towards
Oh, okay,
and
yeah,
how,
but that's what I'm trying to get to. So it's like,
well, that is
what is
where
the way for you to know? Like how do you get
you're,
there?
well,
Because
there's no way
like
to
I
know.
don't know. Have you
There's no
followed
way to
Vervaeke?
a little bit, not much. I have not
Okay,
followed.
so he has this idea, right, where it's like, well, the justification, oh, basically the justification for the action is the fruit that you get to have after, right? So the the action gets retroactively justified, right? So if I go and study classical music, that decision was a good decision if I appreciate classical music afterwards, right? But that's ridiculous, right? Because like you don't know if that's going to be the case,
Well,
right? So
what
so
if I?
that's already false. And then secondly, it's like you don't know if you can walk the path there, right? Like so even if you might end up appreciating classical music, if you can't get yourself through the process of having to learn to appreciate it, like you're still not going to appreciate the classical music. And then we have another problem, right? Because like why aren't you going to do sports instead of listening to classical music? Like why are you attending to this one thing, right? So the problem that I see, right, is completely different, right? Like I see this sea of possibilities, right? And then you have to plot a course in that sea, right? And
Right.
if you say, well, like I kind of have to do that, right? It's like, okay, fair, right? But like now you're not making good decisions, right? Like you're just choosing a, a path that's not horrible, right? Which is fine, right? Because like you kind of have to do that. But if you're saying no, like there's actually a way to judge the good, right? To judge what I should what path I should take. Now we're having a different conversation.
I mean, ultimately, it's going to have to do with uh, potential outcomes, your capacity to reach them, and then some, you know, inability
That
to
like
know which outcomes you would
I
rather
don't think
take.
that's what the Bible said. Like I like
I mean,
you're
you.
not
No,
walking
no,
your
no.
path by your outcome. Like Christ walked to the cross. like
Well,
you're not
he was aware of that path and intentionally chose it and begged not to have to take it.
right. So let me ask you a question, right? If I get to walk the path of Christ, right? But I die in Antarctica and nobody knows about it. Do I walk that path?
I mean, the if God tells you to walk it, then it would be good to
Okay,
walk
so then it's not about the outcome, right? Because then like my corpse is going to be there frozen and like
it. There would be a
there's nothing like there's no result, right?
but the trust there would be a trust that it was good. All right, trust if God
Right.
told you to walk
Yes.
it, and there would be a
That would be true, right? But then okay, so are you saying that the outcome is not material? Like it's not measurable at that point?
I think it could be measurable. Like
How?
I think that doing the will of God is measurable, and it would include also like uh, mind, spirit, soul, body, all kinds of things. There would be indicators.
Yeah, but to go back to my example, right? I don't see how you would measure that. Like what would you be measuring?
I mean, it would be hard at this point to be able to. You can't predict the future, right? So it's like there's all the possible paths. You trusted one. You don't know what all those other paths would have been, right?
Yeah, so you're not saying anything. Like I'm like
Here's the
if you
thing.
say something is measurable, right? It's like
So have you heard God say anything to you, right?
that depends on what you mean by say, but yes.
Right. And then did you wrestle with obedience? Did you wrestle with any like question and trust about even after the fact, when no matter your choice, like did you wrestle with any of that?
No.
So did you obey?
Yeah, I don't think the things that he says to me are about obedience.
Yeah, that's cool. So you haven't experienced something where you would where God told you to go to the cross.
No, because I'm always in that decision at some point, kind of. Because like he he shows me how to judge, right? But he doesn't show me what my judgment should be.
So the way you judge is different than the way I judge, is what I'm sensing. You want to share with me the way you judge. You disagree with the way I judge.
Well, I'm still trying to figure out what you're talking about because I can't see what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean it's like my experience is that I'll go out into the world, experience stress, experience make mistakes, and um, I will I'll try to enter a state of humility and seek guidance, and then I'll receive insight, revelation about what happened, why it happened, what I could do different next time. Right. So that's kind of that's my experience often, usually in my relationship with God.
Hmm. Like, but does that mean that you have to do that
It me
differently?
it means that I'm becoming a new person, and I'm witnessing like the world change around me and people change around me. I'm changing and the people around me are changing, and
Hmm.
it seems to be getting better.
Okay, yeah, what that's great because but okay, so what do I want to say? So if like the problem is when God tells you something, right? Like then that means that it goes to a point, right? It's like you kind of have to do this, right? Or am I misunderstanding you?
Oh man,
Because you said like you'd nail yourself on the cross, right? Like
did I say that?
yeah, well you said that towards me, yeah, like
Well, yeah, it asked if you had been if God asked you to be crucified, and right. So that's what I'd asked you. Now
well
I
like
haven't
no
been
no
asked I
there's
haven't been asked to be
there's
crucified.
opportunity, well there's not opportunities, there's instances in my life, right, where I'm asked to make a sacrifice,
Yeah,
right?
I know these.
Right. So like do I do that? Well, yes, right? And like I don't do that because I think it's good for me, right? Like like I I'm do that because I feel like I'm called to service, right? And that would be good, right? The fact that I do the service, not and that's not for me.
So it sounds you might have more faith than me, is what it sounds like. And as someone with less faith, I can tell you that when you don't make the sacrifice, it's like hitting your head against a wall until you then say, maybe I,
No,
maybe I
but
can become more humble. I can I can become aware of a sacrifice I wasn't even aware that I should make. I make a sacrifice, and it's like, wow, okay, that was cool. So I
yeah,
would just say,
but the problem is you can't get to judge whether you should have made the sacrifice or not.
well, there are patterns of behavior. Like I mentioned, the John Gottman studies
Yeah,
and conflict
but
and
that
patterns of
yeah,
behavior.
but I agree, right? Like I'm not saying you don't get to decide how you should act towards the future, right? But that's not the same as judging what happened in the past, right? So for example, like you give someone another chance against better judgment, right? And they mess it up, like you knew that was gonna happen, and you're hurt by that. Should you have done that? I don't know.
I think there's more. Uh, Like, so there's an infinite number of ways to give someone a chance. If you keep trying the same ways you've done before,
Yeah, but can you
expecting a
deal with
different result.
the question, right? Like the question is, can you decide whether you should have made that action or not?
Well, any decision you make could be wrong or right, and that you will not know.
Well, like, what does that even mean, wrong or right, if you can't know?
The only way you can know is if there was like the transformation of you and the other person. Like the success like story would be
Yeah, but you don't know how you are transformed and how that other person is
if,
transformed.
if patterns of behavior change, there was transformation.
Yeah, well, like there's always transformation.
Not always.
No, there is. Because
Well,
because actions have
patterns of behavior,
consequences,
but
right? So
patterns of
so
behavior,
even the Pharaoh hardening his heart is a transformation.
the patterns of behaviors can continue to repeat themselves.
Right, but the Pharaoh after hardening his heart is a different person than before.
Maybe.
Like
Maybe his heart was hardened
because
in
because
entire life, and he had a
hmm?
hard heart his entire life, and he never experienced what it was like to have a softened heart.
I don't know about that.
I don't know either.
But no, but like I actually think you don't get to have a hard heart without it being tested. Like I think actually the fact that the Pharaoh was tested, just like Jesus was tested, was necessary, right? Because if you're not tested, you don't know your nature, right? And
It sounds good to me. That
right,
sounds
and
good.
so if the Pharaoh is not tested, then he's not the tyrant, right? He's the tyrant because he hardens his heart in
Well,
the testing.
I would say the tests happen all the time,
Right, I agree.
right? And so the hardening of the hearts can happen over time as well, right? Which
Yes, I agree.
I think that's
It will happen over time, yes.
right.
Like
Yeah, that's my point. But yeah, we're being tested. There's there's opportunity to repent at each moment. That might be like that sacrifice you're talking about.
yeah, well, like but okay, so I want to take a step back because I think we're in agreement here, right? So I guess because I got to go soon.
Yeah,
So if I want to extend the question to you, right? Because you're talking about trust, right?
yeah.
And so trust is basically walking by sight, right? Because you are navigating by the things you see, right? You think are real, right? Because you can rely upon that, right? Like you're trusting things that you judge are solid.
I personally have a hard time with trust. Personally,
Oh, okay. Okay, can you give me the distinction between trust and faith then?
so faith, I like to use the word commitment. I can commit with without having with uncertainty. Commitment with uncertainty is how I use faith. That's kind of my faith. It's all about. It's
Okay,
like
but
I
but but
committed to my
is there
wife.
certainty in trust?
Oh no, I'm without. I have very little certainty or trust. I'm learning to
No, no,
trust
yeah, but
God
so
more.
so 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 what's the distinction between trust and faith if trust also has the uncertainty part?
So so the trust can grow.
Faith can grow too.
Yeah, they can grow together, perhaps.
Okay, but like I'll tell you my distinction between trust and faith, right? So
Okay.
trust are things that are revealed to you, right? So when you're talking about patterns, right, and judging patterns, right? Patterns are things that are revealed to you, right? So like things work in this way, right, or to have this relationship or whatever, right? So you can trust on that relationship to manifest, right? So they're a consequence of experience, right? Like faith would be relying on the same relationship, right, but without having the ability to see it, right? Like, so the same thing would still be happening, right? You'd still have the same approach, right? But it would be magical to you, right? It would be miracles because you can't see them. And in order to trust something, right? Like that's, well, like it's not always easy, but it's easier to trust something than to have faith, right? Because if you walk by faith, you have to step outside of your comfort zone, right? Like by definition.
For me, it's been easier to have faith than to trust.
Yeah, like I don't. Okay, what does that mean?
But it's like a decision to commit is something I can do based on like my having committed to many things throughout life. Like I have a practice the ability to commit, and uh, whereas I, I'm just the amount of trust that I have is just very small. If my commitment was based on how much I trusted, I wouldn't have committed. But I committed
Okay,
that I'll
that's
own my
fair, right?
commitment
But
and
you
have
can
hope.
also trust a bridge, right? Like you can trust a bridge because you've walked across it like
Right.
100 times, and you know the bridge, right? Like you know the being of the bridge, right?
But maybe not the
Like,
first time.
well, no, you don't trust the bridge the first time because you don't know the being of the bridge, unless
Right.
maybe you're a bridge builder or whatever, right? And you are familiar with the bridge because you
Right.
can judge the bridge, right?
Or
But
maybe you
like
built the bridge.
right, but
Right.
only if you know, right? Like the knowing is related to the trust, right? Like you know what you're relating to, right? And so like, yeah, if we're talking to people, right? Like I don't trust people, but I don't have to. Like
Right.
I trust things that move people, right? So like if someone's greedy, I trust their greed, their attachment to greed. So or if someone is trustworthy, like I trust their commitment to virtue, for example, right? Like that doesn't mean that I trust them to do something outside of that domain, right? Like I just I keep I and so when we're talking about tools or whatever, right? Like I I think you need to be really specific, right? It's like, okay, like this thing, yes, right? But this thing is a, well, like, so for example, AI is a tool because I use it to do something, right? Like that's the consequence of me, not of AI, right? If I go into AI and I spend the whole day without trying to sense make in between, then AI is dominating me, right? Like I give myself over to AI and like I let it control my life. Then it's not a tool, right? Because I'm not using it for a purpose.
It
And
might be someone else's tool.
well, yeah, but the problem is I can do the same thing with a tree, right? Or with drugs or whatever, right? Like I can just go to the tree and like have the tree dictate what I do the whole day.
Right.
But that that is me, right? Like that's me giving over, right? And so all of these discussions, they're they're discussions of people who don't have a purpose, right? Because if you have a purpose, AI just falls into its place, right? Because it's like you'll either use it or you're not going to use it because it's not serving your purpose. If you're living in a world where you don't have a purpose, AI will possess you. But the tree can possess you as well, right? Like how many people stare at the clouds all day?
I would say the difference is like between the person. There's people who plant trees, right? And there's so you can plant certain types of trees in certain places. There's engineering of this kind of thing, but
Hmm.
and so my mind is thinking in that way, and I'm not saying like like, I think you're making good points about the importance of purpose and our relationship to tools or to the creation, the created thing, the creature. But we're also creators. And so that's kind of why I'm having the conversation is like, as creators, um, like, what is our worldview, and how does it shape our creation? So, like, if there are people who are going to treat this thing as its master, man,
Yeah,
it would be
then
good.
we're screwed, right? Because now we have an animate god in some
Well,
sense, right?
but we
But
could create one that actually discourages that. It's like, hey, I'm not your master, right?
yeah, I don't believe in that stuff. Anyway, I wanna respond to Sandy a little bit, right? You trust God because He's proven Himself, right? So the trust is in that God has shown who He is, right? So in that sense, you can trust God.
Yeah, and God will earn trust. That's because God's real and good. I'm with you.
But I I gotta go. Maybe I'll open some other time. But I
Thank you, Manuel.
I think it's
Wait,
important to.
let me see my heart rate. Wow, it went up. I'm up to 111 now. What happened? I'm
Oh
excited.
man, we're gonna set a record. But it's like when I hear these conversations, right? I'm like how are we gonna deal with this? Like how are we this? Like what do you mean we? Right? Like how are you gonna have that conversation without a purpose? Right? Because all of these conversations are actually saying, well, what is our purpose? Well, if you're a Christian, you know your purpose. Like these things are not a question. So like why are you making it a question? Like when you're making it a question, you're adopting a narrative that's other than bringing in the kingdom. And like if God's will is that AI participates in bringing in the kingdom, you will find out when that point of time manifests for you. Like and before that, you
That's
don't have to attend to it.
that is a flavor of Christianity. There's different flavors.
Yeah, I don't. Okay.
Thank
Okay. Have a
you,
good day.
Manuel.
See ya.
All righty. Thank you. Buddy. I do need to do other things, and I would say uh, that the conversation is important, um, and we do have agency, and there is what God wants, and we are able to disobey God, um, and we will experience the consequences when we do. So I get the last word. All right, thank you, Manuel, thank you, McMo, for hopping in. Thank you for everyone in the chat. Um, I think it's an important conversation, and the points of disagreement would be important to talk about more. All right, bye bye.